Good evening, and welcome to the Livermore City Council meeting for August 26th, 2019. I call the meeting to order. Let the roll call show that all members of the council are present and accounted for. I ask that you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Question for the city attorney. Was there any reportable action taken in the closed session?
Mr. Mayor, yes, there was. I'd like to make an announcement pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.1, Sub A, 1A, in the matter of Yerby versus the City of Livermore, Alameda County Superior Court case number HG 168-35327. The City Council has authorized me to execute a settlement agreement on behalf of the city in the amount of $120,000, contingent upon the court approving the settlement through a minor's compromise. Once signed, a copy of the settlement agreement will be on file in my office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, moving on to proclamations and presentations. We have a proclamation honoring the 40th anniversary of the Community Resources for Independent Living, otherwise known as CRIL. I have a proclamation to present to the Executive Director, Ron Haylog. It is the 40th anniversary, whereas Community Resources for Independent Living, CRIL, was organized in 1979 by a small group of individuals with disabilities who were committed to improving the range of choices and support for people with special needs in southern and eastern Alameda County. And whereas CRIL's mission is best described by former longtime executive director Johnny Lacey, who stated, quote, "Our mission is to help disabled people to get jobs and medical services and do whatever they can do to maintain their independence," end quote. And whereas CRIL offers independent living services at no charge to persons with disabilities, services include housing assistance, employment and vocational counseling, personal and home care assistance referral, and whereas CRIL emphasizes independent living for their clients by offering independent living skills, training, healthy living workshops, travel training, and van share services, and whereas CRIL members also advocate for the equal rights for people with disabilities through civil rights laws and public education, now therefore the City Council of the City of Livermore congratulates the Community Resources for Independent Living on its 40th anniversary and thanks its members for their work and support of the special needs population in Livermore. And Mr. Haylog.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. CRIL's been around for a while, for that 40 years, and we've had our ups and downs, but I can honestly say we're doing a good job here. Just last year alone, we met up with over 950 consumers with only 10 staff. It's unbelievable. It's like most of our things that we are doing right now is housing search assistance, helping people with disabilities get some housing. And with the HUD vouchers that are coming through, it's happening even more. We're also helping out with the CalFresh. So if some people are on SSI, we're able to get them some food stamps so they can stay more independent as much as they can. And the best thing that we've got for Alameda County, we teamed up with Pacific ADA, and we received a $1.5 million grant from Cal OES to actually do emergency preparedness for seniors and also people with disabilities. And so if you know of any CBOs that are out there that would like to team up with us to get that outreach for seniors or people with disabilities, please have them give me a call. But I do want to thank you for this. This is a wonderful, wonderful honor, and thank you so much. Take care.
Well, thank you for 40 years of service to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haylog. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the Citizens Forum. These are typically items that are not on the agenda. The City Council can neither deliberate nor take action on an item when it's brought up during the Citizens Forum. I ask that you keep comments to 3 minutes or less. And with that, we have Rusty Skinner, Alden Fott, and Greg Scott. Mr. Skinner.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Rusty Skinner. My wife and I own and operate 2 local restaurants here in Livermore. I come from a family that has owned and operated businesses in Livermore for over 40 years. I wanted to let everyone know about a closed-door meeting that myself and 9 other business owners had with Joan Sepola, Gene King, and Tammy Roos a few weeks ago. As a downtown business owner whose business will be directly impacted by either plan, I had some serious questions and concerns that I thought would be answered about the Central Park picture. I have roughly 12 years of residential and commercial construction experience prior to going into business for myself. I've worked on massive projects all over the country. I've asked Joan for a copy of the economic impact study for the Central Park picture. We were told they do not have that. We asked who backed the plan. We were told they talked to 17 other business owners downtown over a 2-year period, but they still could not answer the question. We asked about where the funding for the Central Park drawing would come from. That question was completely ignored. I asked if the residents of Livermore voted in favor of the picture, what would the overall delay to the entire project be? She told us that they could have a drawing in less than 90 days. I find it nearly impossible to have an accurate planning and research done for a project of this magnitude in 90 days. The answer was still completely ignored. Joan then told us that the city could not start the Bankhead Hotel until the Ice Street parking garage was complete. I do know this to be a lie because that was discussed in previous city council meetings. I can personally say that after this meeting was over, I felt like I was directly lied to, misled by someone that does not care about Livermore, the residents, or the businesses. She just wants to leave, and this was, in her words, a legacy on her town. I want what's best for the community of Livermore, the small businesses, and the future. I want the residents to know that we fully back you guys and the Stockman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skinner. Thank you. Alden Fott, Greg Scott, Elizabeth Judge.
Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Alden Fott. My wife and I own Simply Fondue in downtown Livermore. We were at that same kind of closed-door meeting with the folks who developed the Central Park plan. Short time ago, I was actually out at the farmer's market, and I was met by a volunteer signature gatherer. I was actually excited to talk to a signature gatherer who was a volunteer, hoping they would have more information about the Central Park drawing than what I've been able to find out on my own. During this meeting, one of the things that I definitely learned is we were told that the Central Park drawing was drawn by a professional architectural firm, but I still don't understand why it was drawn at an unrealistic scale. Obviously, the initiative, the language in the initiative does not match the scale of the buildings. In fact, it seems to create this grand illusion of a larger park than what would really exist. After roughly a 2-hour meeting, I really didn't have any more clarity than what I had going into the meeting. It was about Joan's legacy. That was the one thing that stuck out to me. I'd just like to thank the City Council and staff for keeping this project moving forward. We voted, my wife and I voted for you guys because you stood behind you had a specific vision. There was a specific plan, and we voted for you guys for that reason. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Fott. Greg Scott, Elizabeth Judge, Rochelle Snedecor.
You all right? Yeah. Okay. You need a chair? Okay.
Please have a seat. Just pull that out. Thank you.
This is Sue Workington, and I'm Greg Scott, and we speak on homelessness. The good news is, recently, Sue got housing. Yay. Imagine that, a woman with a roof over her head at night, a bed, and a private bathroom. Wow, what a concept. Many thanks to the people in San Francisco that helped her and put on pressure on personnel in Livermore. Without that pressure from San Francisco, I don't think it would have happened. For every story I can tell of the fortunate one like Sue, I can tell many stories of those not so fortunate. It's not getting better out there. It's only getting worse. One woman out there, she's in her 70s. The move-in special in Pleasanton was $2,700 a month. The rent went to $3,500 a month. She's been living in her car, and her 2 adult children are also homeless. I could go on many stories out there. I made a mistake in the last city council meeting about the point-in-time count of the homeless being every year in Alameda County. It's every 2 years. It's on the odd years. The point-in-time count is for the annual housing assessment report on homelessness. So every 2 years, Alameda does it. For every year, the report's issued by the Housing and Urban Development in December. So on even years in that December, the information for Alameda County is almost 2 years old. The point-in-time count from 2017 in Livermore went from 243 to 219. In 2019, it went to 264. So the increase for Alameda County was 43%, but the increase for Livermore is less than 10%. I feel that's a little bit like the chapter, The Map is Not the Territory, in Fritjof Capra's book, The Tao of Physics. There's so many new faces out there. How can that be? It doesn't make any sense. Wow. You know, it is so sad out there. You know, people are dying, people are suffering. And then I guess we don't have the excuse of no resources anymore. We just had $494,000 of HEAP funding, the Homeless Emergency Act program funding, $494,000 for our crisis intervention. Well, we've missed a lot of crisis intervention, but we have 18 months and a week to spend that to March 31st, 2021. So I can tell you where we're going to be after that. We're going to be to April 1st, 2021, April Fool's Day, and where are we going to be other than sans almost $500,000 on ameliorating the greater problem of homelessness? About right where we are now.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Elizabeth Judge, Rochelle Snedecor, Neil Herrick.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. My name is Elizabeth Judge, and I speak for myself. The old Growth Brothers property will not include 33 units for affordable housing out of its 222 market-priced rental units. According to City Hall, this is because in 2013, the state suspended the 15% requirement for affordable rental units due to market considerations. Surely the market has changed since then. I encourage the city to do what it can to get those suspensions lifted. Affordable housing included within a market-price development is preferable to standalone affordable housing due to the shared amenities and more likely chance for apartment upgrades over time. Collecting data on the city's affordable housing record is made somewhat difficult because the developments are listed according to their particular names, like the Sage development, rather than addresses. A cross-reference with addresses would be helpful. Also, the number of affordable units in any given development is expressed as a single number rather than a fraction of the whole. If one did not know the total number of units for the development and it was not easily available, there's no way to tell whether it is 15%. Expressing affordable units as a fraction of the whole would be useful for the future. Staff was very courteous, but answering all my questions would have caused extensive staff time to complete due to the way the information is recorded. On another matter, the last time I addressed the council was on July 23 when I mentioned my experience collecting signatures for the initiative. At the last minute, a young man who did not like what I had reported asked to speak and implied I had been lying. He owes me a personal apology for that defamation of character. I was not lying or fabricating stories. Alas, he had learned in his 3 times attending council meetings that trashing other citizens is the accepted thing to do around here. He is in the social media business, so perhaps he thinks anything goes. Well, it doesn't. The character of Livermore is being eroded with the conduct here and on Nextdoor by some officials, family members of officials, and former officials. Isn't Livermore better than this? Or should the Bay Area just lower its expectations? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Judge. Rochelle Snedecor, Neil Herrick, Jessica Flores.
Good evening. I was asked, Nancy Bankhead could not be here tonight because she's at a sheep raising workshop in Colorado. She was asked by LVPAC board leader to wait 30 days before announcing or reading her resignation to the LVPAC board, and she's asked me to read that tonight. To the editor. My name is Nancy Bankhead, and my family gave the money for the naming rights to the Bankhead Theater. It was a gift to my mother, Evelyn Bankhead, who has since passed. She loved the arts, and I went to many concerts as a child at Livermore High School. It was the only place in Livermore with an auditorium. Now we have a wonderful place, the Bankhead Theater. I've been to many city council meetings over the last 2 years. At the last 2 meetings, I was very upset about what was said about the leadership of the Bankhead. It was horrible. The Bankhead is one of the best things that ever happened to Livermore. Scott Kennison, the day-to-day manager, works very hard to get great shows into the building. He brings some of the best talent to Livermore. Many things have been said at council meetings that are misleading. Referendums and initiatives are tearing us apart. Some city council members, Bankhead, LVPAC, Livermore Valley Performing Arts Center board members, and community members have put the Bankhead in the middle of a political fight, and that is not right. The Bankhead is not a place for politics, it is a place for the arts. I, for one, decided I do not want to be a part of this. As of last Thursday, July 25th, I resigned from the board of directors of LVPAC, operators of the Bankhead Theater. The downtown should bring the community together. The people of Livermore should not be torn apart by this. Sincerely, Nancy Bankhead. Immediately following her resignation, a threat from LVPAC leadership as punishment was kind of put towards her due to the resignation. I want it known now that LDI downtown businesses commit to stand with Nancy and her Bankhead family against any future bullying as her family continues its investments into our community. Evelyn Bankhead's legacy is not just a building, but it's a legacy of reputation, of love and integrity. That is what will stand much longer than a building.
Thank you, Ms. Snedecor. Neil Herrick, Jessica Flores, Jessica Morales.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Superior Staff, I still got to get a word better than staff for that. I want to thank everyone. As some of you know, I do go to a lot of City Council meetings from Livermore to Fremont, Livermore to Orinda. I saw something last council meeting that disturbed me greatly. 2 individuals had been speaking throughout the evening. One became very emotional and physically threatened the other. I go back 50 years in this town. We do not do this in Livermore. We are adults, the members of the audience. Council has been fantastic with what's going on. We have to grow up, ladies and gentlemen. There is no place for intimidation. There is no place for bullying, and there is no place that we cannot discuss these things as adults. If you cannot come to this council meeting and discuss, I don't care the color of the bicycle paths, are they going to be yellow or green? If you can't come to this meeting and discuss whether we're going to put a hotel on the east side, the west side, tear this mall down or put it out at Tesla, you shouldn't come to this meeting. We have a lot in front of us in this town. We have a lot of young people that can barely afford a house. We are losing the brain trust in this town because people are leaving. People of my generation are leaving the minute they get old enough to leave because they cannot afford to stay here. This is not the town I grew up in. I have spoken with people in every business in this town, and we are all very confused and very concerned with this initiative. I'm not blaming anyone, I'm not casting aspersions, but there needs to be a clear message from those with the initiative as to what this stands for. There needs to be a clear guidance that we will go forward from here honestly on both sides, be it the council, be it the citizens, be it the initiative. But I do not want to see another person threatened in this city council. So it means a lot to me. I have friends here. I've buried friends here. And we're better than this, guys. I mean, look at this. We're better than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herrick. Jessica Flores, Jessica Morales, and Marisol Morales.
Good evening, Mayor Martian, council members, and staff. My name is Jessica Flores. I've been a Livermore resident for 24 years, which is most of my life. The evening of Sunday, August 4th, we lost a very special member, someone near and dear to my heart, Yaneli Morales. Yaneli was killed crossing East Avenue near the Jensen Crosswalk. Although there is controversy about the details of her passing, this should not take away from the importance of why we are here today. She was a beautiful soul, just 26 years old, a daughter, a sister, a cousin, a friend, and a very much loved one. She had a unique and beautiful smile and a contagious laugh. Yaneli was very family-oriented and one of the strongest people I've known. She had a special bond with my two daughters and loved them as her own, my oldest even carrying her name. To honor Yaneli's memory and to give her death some meaning, I'm here to ask you to make East Avenue safer. East Avenue is a busy traffic area, but hopefully that does not mean that pedestrians and bicyclists are less of a priority. The folder presented to the city clerk contains a copy of an article titled "The Fantasy Pedestrian," along with written statements from residents of Yaneli's loved ones. There is also a petition signed by 1,327 community members who would like to see safer solutions to city traffic, especially along East Avenue. I ask City Council members and staff to review these materials and take a fresh look at the safety concerns of non-drivers on Livermore streets. Please don't let Yaneli's death become just another statistic. I've heard several stories of traffic injuries along East Avenue, and 15 years ago, one woman was hit by a truck, resulting in serious injuries between Hillcrest and Drakeway. Today's traffic is much worse, so I have to ask, does the safety of Livermore pedestrians and cyclists currently share the priority with facilitating commuters' passage through town? Could Yaneli's death have been prevented by taking a different view and different measures? I believe more can and should be done before other preventable accidents take place on East Avenue. Mayor Marchand, almost all the people I've spoken with say public safety is very important to you. So I beg you, please re-examine the various ways to make East Avenue safe for future pedestrians and bicyclists so no other family has to go through the pain of losing a loved one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Flores. Jessica Morales, Marisol Morales, Mary Perner.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I was contemplating on coming up here because it is so fresh to me, and it hurts as if it just happened today. But if me coming up here is going to help save another life and save another family the pain we are going through, then I'm all up for it. Yaneli was my sister, my best friend, and my other half. She was an amazing individual who would light up a whole room with a simple smile. She was crossing the street on East Avenue at around 8:35 p.m. and got hit by a car. She passed on the scene. I've lived in Livermore for 24 years now, and I can tell you that East Avenue is like a racetrack. People speed down East Avenue without even thinking about others crossing the street, whether they are on the crosswalk or not. Instead of slowing down, they actually speed up sometimes. After my sister passed away, my family and I spent many nights at her memorial on East Avenue, and it's honestly crazy to see how many people almost got hit within the nights we were there. Cars would also run through the cones the police officers had set up, and many people stopped to let us know they were scared to have their own kids walking down East Avenue because they themselves have almost gotten struck by cars. Unfortunately, my sister was the one who got hit this time. Next time, it could be your sister, your daughter, your son, your niece, or your nephew. I would never want anyone to show up to a scene to see their family member under a sheet the way we had to. Please, let's not wait until this happens to one of your own family members. Let's do something about this now. Let's make Livermore and East Avenue a safer place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Marisol Morales, Mary Perner, Brent Seiler.
Good evening, Council and Mayor.
For those who don't know who I am, my name is Marisol Morales. Sorry. I consider Yaneli one of my closest friends, as most would say, a best friend. I first met her my freshman year of high school, and since then, we sparked a friendship and a bond that is rare to find nowadays. I can name so many memories that we had together and speak for hours and days, but that is not why I'm here tonight. We are here tonight to raise awareness to the city of Livermore, to enhance and implement effective and safer crosswalks and streets for pedestrians to use. To some, this may not be a big deal until you lose a loved one due to poor engineering on a crosswalk that took someone's life. This could have been prevented. This could have been fixed after the first life was taken on this exact crosswalk. Unfortunately, multiple deaths need to happen to bring this into light and to open people's eyes that this could have been anyone. It could have been someone's daughter, someone's mother, or someone's husband. It could have happened to anyone here tonight. It's not fair. It's not fair that it had to be my best friend, my family. So I stand here today to praise the city of Livermore and the community to make a change, to make the streets safer, to invest in safer crosswalks so another life does not have to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Perner, Brent Seiler, Steve Dunbar.
Good evening, Mayor Marchand, Vice Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Mary Perner. I live at 3717 Kerrigan Common in the Vineyard Townhomes complex. East Avenue is visible at an angle from my front windows. Sunday evening, August 4th, I was settled in on the sofa reading when I heard screaming. Hysterical screaming that went on for what seemed like quite a while. Eventually, I stepped outside to investigate and was confronted by a sea of flashing colored lights. At the locked iron gate separating our complex from East Avenue, the lights materialized into several police cars, two of which were blocking off East Avenue at Jensen and at Dolores. The desperate screaming continued. I asked a passing officer through the gate bars, "Is someone hurt?" "Yes," he said, and continued walking. As I returned to my front door, the screaming ceased. Jessica Flores tells me I may have been listening to Yaneli Morales' final moments on earth. If so, she did not pass easily or quickly. In the following days, with Yaneli's vigil site just across the street, I made contact with Jessica Flores and offered to help. She and I both seek a safer East Avenue. East Avenue, where commute speeds average 40 to 45 miles per hour while the posted limit is 30. What will it take to slow these people down? I'm thinking another flashing yellow, your speed signal, where it gives you your speed versus the posted speed, like the one in front of Robert Livermore Community Center. East Avenue is a primary arterial. In almost 15 years living there, I have seen perhaps a dozen instances of enforcement, at the most. Does the city want drivers to slow down? What have city planners recommended? Is there a timetable? There are other issues. I ride my bicycle or walk along East Avenue nearly every day and have personally had two breathtakingly close calls with red light runners at the Dolores Crosswalk. I am small. It's likely speeding drivers did not see me emerge from behind cars allowed to park close to the crosswalk. This past year, I've noted an increase in bicycle traffic along the avenue. In addition to the commuting lab workers, I now see more students riding to and from school. Lately, young kids trail their moms in little cycling caravans going who knows where. West of Jefferson Avenue, they and I are forced onto the sidewalks in areas with no bike lanes at all, much less protected lanes. As we know from tonight's agenda, the downtown controversy is sucking a lot of oxygen out of the city and perhaps also the city budget. Almost done. Nevertheless, I hope any plans the city may have to improve East Avenue can be expedited or at least amended for some quick interim safety fixes. Balancing and incorporating the needs of commuters with those of cyclists and pedestrians, and taking into account all of us are human and fallible, like Yaneli. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perner. Brent Seiler, Steve Dunbar, Susie Huffstadter.
Council, staff, good evening. This is one meeting I wish we'd never have to come to, when we have to talk about the death of a resident and what could have been done to prevent it. When the last accident happened, I actually came to the council and I asked for something to be done at that intersection, and I was told it would be looked into. In that time, nothing has been done to increase the visibility in that area. The city has moved to LED lights, which has now decreased some of the visibility, especially along the East Avenue corridor. And, you know, if something could have been done, this could have been a preventable accident. Not only do I have deep empathy for the Morales family, but also the gentleman who now has to live the rest of his life realizing he hit a pedestrian, and that caused a death to a family. The young gentleman who hit Beachy, which was the one prior to this, was standing on the side of the road with his parents, and he said, "I never saw him." The same thing this driver said when asked by the police. Speeding wasn't a problem, alcohol wasn't a problem. It was a horrific accident. Please, don't let there be another one. Don't let Yaneli's death go in vain. Please direct staff to take a concerted effort to resolve that one area. We've got other areas in the community. Scott Street, for example, is a very bad intersection. I wish I spoke to Mr. Scott earlier. There was a homeless gentleman at Portola and First Street that was killed in that one. Why? It was dark, the person didn't see him. We do have a problem, and that problem needs to get addressed, because if not, there's going to be another one. And if it is, it falls on someone's shoulders at that point. This family, the father, the mother, are standing right there. Don't let this go. Please do something to make it safer for us and the community here in Livermore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seiler. Steve Dunbar, Susie Huffstadter, Susan Workington.
Good evening, council and the people behind me and staff and mayor. You know me from my emails. You know me. I've been here. I could give you a million technical things about what to do, about what I think, from purple crosswalks to lighting to you know what, and I can sit down and talk with staff about that, and we can all have a big discussion about that. But the only thing that I know is that absolutely no one deserves to die for walking somewhere for a mistake, whether that is the mistake of the pedestrian or the driver or anyone, any third party or anyone. No one deserves to die for that. And I urge you to continue working to make it safe so that that never happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Susie Huffstadter, Susan Workington, Asa Strout.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Susie Huffstadter. I'm advocacy manager with Bike East Bay. We're a regional nonprofit advocating for safer streets for people biking and walking. And I want to say good evening to Yaneli's family. Thank you for being here. It's incredibly difficult, and I just want to stand here in solidarity with you, and I'm just so sorry. In addition to that, I wanted to talk policy just very briefly. There are a lot of tools in the toolbox that could potentially be applied to this intersection, but I want to push you as a city to think big about traffic safety. Vision Zero, and I can share these with you, I have enough copies, is a national policy initiative, actually international, to work towards safer systems that will make mistakes not deadly. That means reducing speeds. Anything above 25 miles per hour is not appropriate for a city street where people are walking and biking and living. 4-lane roads are extremely deadly. Multi-lane intersections are extremely deadly. There are tools, there are experts, there are policies, and staff needs to have direction from you to adopt them. There are strong data and everything. There's experts on this. Please send your staff to all the conferences. The Caltrans is sponsoring them. Sacramento, it's not far away. You can take the initiative. You have to put that initiative behind your staff so that they know what to do. Vision Zero, you can achieve it.
You give this to the city.
And I'm so sorry.
You give this to the city clerk. Thank you. Susan Workington and Asa Strout.
Hello, everybody. My name is Susan Workington. Hello, Mayor, City Council. I was outside for quite a while. I was up in Mendocino County, and I came back down here because I get extremely ill. I had a seizure, and I was staying out of my car. It's extremely dangerous. Not only is it dangerous cars driving by, but it's dangerous because drug addicts, alcoholics, crazy people come after you, and if you're a normal, everyday working person like I was, it's a very scary situation. And if not for UCSF, who did my neurospinal surgery, I wouldn't have got housing. And there's a lot of people who are sicker than me. There's people out there with stage 4 cancer. There's veterans. There's people who are just in miserable situations, who they're out there day after day after day. And I was out there for quite a while too. I didn't get housing until I came back to Livermore. And it moved pretty quick, so I'm very, very lucky. The County of Alameda got me a hospital bed so I can rest, you know, because I probably have a lot more operations to go. I'm still walking, so I'm doing okay, you know. But there's other people out there, especially the veterans. I'm very concerned about those guys because they served our country, and they deserve to be first. They deserve to be first even over me, you know. I'm just ill, but they have, like, besides having mental issues, they have physical issues. It's just a miserable situation what the VA does, and I don't appreciate it. I wish there was another way. I don't know how there can be another way, but if there is, I sure hope that it could be done, you know. I just got lucky this time, and I had to wait quite a while, you know. God bless everybody, you know. I'm glad I'm back in this town. I was here 20 years ago working for Kaiser Aluminum out there, you know. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Workington. Asa Strout. Oh, Mr. Strout, could you hold just a moment? I believe that. Okay, before everybody leaves, Councilmember Monroe wished to speak on this because since she shares the neighborhood.
Right. So I just wanted to extend my deep condolences, my deep sympathies. What we say is, may her memory be for a blessing for now and for always, for all of you going forward, for all of us going forward. Under normal circumstances, what I would be doing is asking, we can't take action as a council at this time. It's not on the agenda, we can't do that. What we can do is ask for information and ask for this to be put on the agenda for going forward. That's what would normally take place at the end. Most people don't stay for that. And so, because so many people are here, I've asked if it's okay to make a couple of comments and a couple of requests. So, first of all, I know that in the last couple of years, the city has spent a great deal of time looking at traffic reports, doing complete streets reports, and I'm wondering, and I know that East Avenue, I mean, I remember last year, one of the first council meetings I started attending, there was a kerfuffle over East Avenue and some of the proposals that hadn't even been implemented, just been proposed. So I'm wondering if you could speak a little to that. And then I'm also wondering if it's appropriate, if it's possible at this point for me to ask and get some nods for just revisiting those complete streets going forward, or should I wait until the end?
Well, we have the plan. It's in
Right.
current process right now.
Right, but just sort of to look at where that is and how we
Okay,
can.
just an update on the East Avenue and the traffic.
Yeah.
So, Honorable Mayor, I'll start, and I'll let Community Director, Development Director Paul Spence start. But you have already directed that we return to you for authorization to do a more complete study on East Avenue. You know that staff had made some proposals to make essentially, in particular, bike traffic along East Avenue safer, and that did create conflicts between the various users. In fact, to the extent then there was not consensus around what the solution should be to make changes to that roadway. And so your direction, and in fact your policy direction to us, is to return to you for authorization to do a further, more comprehensive study. There's a limited amount of right-of-way and balancing between those various needs so that we can make the roadway even safer, and especially for pedestrians and cyclists is already part of your policy. Mr. Spence, I know that's scheduled for this 2-year period, which started beginning in July. Do you have a sense of when that request would return to the council?
So it was scheduled for next year. If the council wanted us to move that up in time, we could certainly take that direction and come back to you, look at other priorities and come back to you on that more quickly.
And how would that be part of matters initiated? So I'd want to wait until a little bit later to do that.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay.
So we'll have that in matters initiated.
Right. Yeah.
But just that, yes, we've moved this up, or it sounds like we're going to move this up. But we're currently studying it. We have studied it, and again, our top priority continues to be public safety. Everyone up here is committed to that, and we will continue to work on this to ensure everybody's safety. So thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Stroud.
So I'm just going to keep it really quick. So thanks, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, staff, for having us and showing the compassionate, nature of Livermore to allow, Councilmember Monroe to make those statements. I just wanted to make a quick statement and make a request that once the initiative or the referendum signatures are turned in, that we request that the county registrar's office do a full and complete validation. A lot of sentiment and stories that have been shared through social media and other channels have shown that individuals feel very threatened by these individuals. There's the story out there where an individual said that they were going to have a gun pulled on them while they were being flipped off by one of the signature gatherers. And some of them have left feeling very disturbed and shaken about the experience. So it just kind of calls into question, the nature of how some of these signature gatherers, specifically the paid ones, not the volunteers, are gathering the signatures in terms of a more aggressive manner on top of what we've seen traditionally as misleading and false information to convince people to sign the signatures. We know that's illegal, but the signatures still hold up. But we want to make sure that all the signatures there are valid signatures, and we want to make sure that going forward that if the referendum is to get turned in, that those signatures are correct signatures, so that going forward we know for certain that it did qualify, not statistical sampling. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stroud. Carl Winty.
Carl Winty, I live just outside of town. Mr. Mayor, Council, staff, awesome team of incredible individuals that want to make this city a better place. I thank you for serving the greater good of the community, and I thank you for listening. Competing priorities, you can please some people sometime, can't please all the people all the time. The rational centrist in the middle of the bell curve, may you follow the will of the people, not the whim of the people, but listen, do your outreach, do your process, and you have, and it's fun to watch. So Rusty and Alden, so good to see y'all here. Greg Scott, keep fighting the good fight. It is getting worse. It's not getting better. The map is indeed not the territory. We're better than this. We should be better than this. At the same time, I'll call a spade a spade. I am a student of this, of the Independent and what goes into the letters, the being accused of being a sycophant that doesn't care about Livermore and the like. So we're all of Livermore and want to be there, but we call a spade a spade. Like, I'm watching it go. Joan Sepula holds a lot of power, a lot of sway, buys ink by the barrel, and the editorial lines blur from journalism there. The press is a critical piece of this democratic republic, this freely elected democratic republic. Referendums and initiatives, they are tearing us apart a little bit. It is the constitutional right to petition the government, right? To redress, formalized in the California state constitution. We all know this. We're a nation of laws. It's going to play out. What I know that you all know is when people say the overwhelming majority, these sweeping gestures, you all are listening, and my generation's waking up. It feels good. Like the inert citizenry is the worst thing that can happen to a democratic republic, right? So may we all wake up, may we all take part in this beautiful process that we are so lucky to have. Worst form of government except for every other form of government that's ever been. There is no place for intimidation and bullying. We are indeed better than this, and may we be. To the family of Mrs. Morales and the courage it took to come, I salute you all for being here, taking part. I salute you all in advance, and you all in advance for taking good action for our citizenry going forward. Those who put on a bulletproof vest to go to work, I thank you for that. Rest of the city staff, anybody else in uniform with a badge, thank you for what you do. Thank you all for listening to the will of the people, the greater majority of us that want to see this thing move forward. You were elected overwhelmingly to continue to do it. So thank you for continuing to do so. Viva Livermore.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wente. Okay, closing the public comment period. Okay, I'm going to revisit a fact-finding feature that I started a few weeks ago to correct misinformation and misquotes. I wanted to revisit a quote that came from the August 8th edition of The Independent when I cited that there had been attacks against the city outreach process because I didn't participate in that process, that the mayor was disengaged. And it appears that my response may have been edited for brevity, but it shouldn't be compromised, shouldn't compromise the accuracy. I said that I did not appoint myself to the committee because someone asked me not to, for fear that, and I quote them, might bring a bias. And that was my quote, and that's where the quote ended. The rest of the quote, which was actually the answer to the question, was that I did not participate because I had already appointed 2 council members to that subcommittee, and had I participated, it would have constituted a violation of the Brown Act. So that would have compromised the process. That is why I didn't participate. It wasn't for lack of interest, but it was because it would have compromised the process. It came up a couple of times tonight. This was brought up. The same article quoted a speaker as saying, and I quote, "What is happening to us? Can we discuss our differences like adults and disagree without being disagreeable?" End quote. Well, people's tempers get short when they're told that their elected leaders are lying. Last week, a paid signature gatherer threatened to shoot one of my neighbors. This has been encouraged to get out of control. We are facing a credibility crisis. Last week, I exchanged emails with the writer of a headline story, front page headline story above the masthead, or above the fold, sorry. She wrote to me that, and I quote, "The goal is to write a neutral explainer that will help citizens understand each proposal." That was the end quote. She wanted to know what the council was going to do tonight. And of course, because of the Brown Act, we can't discuss what we're going to do beforehand, so we don't know what's going to happen. I then wrote to her, and I quote, "If this truly is to be a neutral piece to help voters make an informed decision, where are you getting the financial and traffic analysis for the downtown drawing versus the approved downtown plan?" Well, as we saw, it wasn't a neutral piece. I emailed the writer this morning and asked if any changes had been made to her story or if she wanted to change any comments. She wrote that the story was vetted by 3 editors, no quotes were changed, and that she stood by the changes in the article. That is why I'm concerned. She stated in her email that she'd, and I quote, "prefer to have city-vetted reports and figures as I try to support propaganda from fact." As I try to support propaganda from fact. In the article, all references to Veterans Park have been eliminated. The statue of the cowboy becoming a veteran has been replaced with a fountain. Members of the advocacy groups have been elevated to the same status as the elected leaders of this community. The article states that the city's plan prioritizes affordable housing, while the Central Park drawing favors more green space and more convenient parking. That is neither neutral nor factual. We will learn later this evening that the city's approved plan has more parking and more open space than the drawing. In fact, the drawing does not even match the initiative. I gave the writer the opportunity to correct any misstatements, but the writer stood by her quotes, and her 3 editors stand by the article. And that's exactly what the article did. It supported the propaganda and ignored the facts. We have a credibility crisis. We need to be able to get the correct information out to our community. And what we're seeing isn't helping. It's turning this community against itself. Neighbors are concerned because neighbors are fighting neighbors. At the Teal Family Foundation this weekend, 2 former good friends were almost at each other's throats because one of the people shares the same name as someone who's been very active on Nextdoor. And she's been attacking the council. Well, it turns out there's 2 different people with the same name. So fortunately, I was able to resolve that conflict on Sunday. But this is tearing this community apart. And we need to start having an open conversation. Everything that we've done here, every element of the approved downtown plan has been conducted in public meetings. Every single element has been voted on in the public. You can't say the same thing for the downtown drawing. We need to have an open conversation and an open dialogue to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard. So thank you. With that, moving ahead here, moving on to the consent calendar. These are items that are typically routine in nature and are passed on a single motion. I have 3 cards. Okay, I have two for 4.01. That is the resolution appropriating $183,000 in unspent fiscal year 2018 Housing and Human Services grant funds. Greg Scott and Carl Wente. Mr. Scott.
Greg Scott, speaking on homelessness in Livermore. So 4.01, resolution appropriating $183,157 in unspent fiscal year housing and human services grant funds. I just wonder with the situation out there how we can be unspending money. We had our own death in the homeless community on 3 days after the woman was hit, the pedestrian, on Wednesday, the morning of Wednesday, the 8th, a homicide. 4 bullets were put in the torso of a homeless man, Gordo, by another homeless man who's in jail for that. We've had several deaths in the homeless community, and how is it exactly we're not spending money? I mean, we've been complaining about not having enough resources, and we don't have money. Of that, on the point-in-time count, of that count, 264 that are homeless. I don't know how we come up with that count, but 179 are unsheltered. The continual question is, where do we expect the homeless to go? What do we expect the unsheltered desperate to do? Even more fundamental, do we really have the intent and the political will to ameliorate the overall homeless situation? You know, it's just, we go on spending this money, and we have dedicated over $608,000 from HEAP funding dedicated to Livermore for short-term actions. Yet we don't have any sanitation or bathroom facilities in the encampments. I mean, we didn't even put money toward that. What are we, third world? I don't get it. We have 2 national labs in this town. I just don't understand our approach. And to have money left over when people are suffering, I don't know. I go to these Human Services Commission meetings, and I tell you, it's like watching patty cake for me. The last one, you know, they're interviewing service providers, and I had a question for a service provider, but we can't have an audience member ask a question of a service provider giving a presentation. Of course not. You wouldn't want an audience member who knows something about homelessness asking a service provider a question. It is so exasperating. It's just stupid homeless games. It goes on over and over, and I don't know. Money left over when people are suffering and people are living in their cars like they are, and people are living unsheltered. I really don't understand it.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Just a quick question. I don't see Claudia. Oh, Eric Uranga is hiding back there. One of the things I understand is that, for example, last year there were over $2 billion in the state of unspent homelessness funds because there are a lot of, the money is appropriated, but there's a lot of constraints on how those dollars can be spent. So even though sometimes the dollars are there are constraints on how those dollars are spent. Is that one of the things that's happened here?
That's correct, and I think the funding, the state funding that you have noted, is usually there's a gap, a time delay, or a time period between when money is approved and then when the regulations or rules are issued, and then the application process to apply for the money, then the approval of the money, and then the contracts to get the money, and then it comes out. So a lot of that $2 billion is that bureaucracy at the state level, eventually filtering down. And I think now we're in a position where the NOFAs, the Notice of Funding Availabilities, are starting to roll out, and I think we're in a terrific position to apply for everything that we're qualified for and to get even more money into our city. Now, in terms of this situation or the request here, I think unspent is a little bit of a misnomer. What we have here is a 2-year rental subsidy program. It provides rent subsidies to folks who are homeless or at risk of being homeless. And after the first year, we asked for, there's a rebudgeting of the money, see what was spent by each person, because the rent amounts go up and down, and then we ask for the second year's worth of money to be approved. So this is just the second year of a 2-year program where the money has been set aside, but it has to be reapproved in the second year. There's not money left unspent out of any of our programs. It's usually spent by a nonprofit.
This is the second year allocation.
Yes, of a continuing program. Someone gets 2 years worth of subsidy. This is the second year of the budget of that. And so, you know, like I said, unspent, it's easy to see that because the word unspent means like, it seems like, oh, we just didn't get around to spending it. But it was
Yeah, but to Mr. Scott's point, the subject of this particular item is unspent funds.
Yes.
So
Yeah, no,
I do think he makes an important point, and I don't want to dismiss that because that's what the subject line said was unspent.
Yeah, yes, I think it's correct in that the money wasn't unspent, but it wasn't unspent because it was not approved or wasn't allocated or directed towards a specific use.
We could not have spent it last year.
Correct.
So we're spending it as fast as we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you answer the other question about his point about the bathrooms at the encampments? I think we discussed that previously, didn't we?
We did, and right now staff is working internally to develop the different contracts and agreements to put in place for the service providers, as well as staff is coordinating with the different service providers to bring not only public bathrooms, but also the safe parking program and other things to the city as quickly as possible. So
And I don't think we've decided yet on the placement of those bathrooms, but certainly the encampments is seriously being considered.
that would very much seriously be considered.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And of course, you co-chair the subcommittee on homelessness.
Well, sure, that's why I know that we...
That's right. just giving you credit there.
I don't
And
need
you as
credit.
well, Councilmember Monroe. Okay, Carl Wente,
Still in process.
4.01.
We're still on to the next one.
Right, yeah.
Carl Wente, 5 generations in this area, live just right outside of town. I was going to come up and thank the city staff for what goes into the consent calendar and all of this stuff that goes through, but Mr. Scott in his continual speak out makes me want to quote Mahatma Gandhi one more time, is that we as a society should be judged based on how we treat our most destitute. We should. It's a fair one. Like this, with great honor and respect that you all come up here and serve with great duty as well, to look at public safety, to take those tangible actions and have it move forward. Greg Scott and I were here together when you had to roll almost $500,000 forward on one of these. And rolling it forward is better than having it go away, right? The black hole where it's not there. But the time for action for helping the most destitute is now, in the moment, and with an immediacy. And I'm not saying that you're not doing it. I will say as fast as we can. That just like puts it like it couldn't go a day faster, or it couldn't go, like you're doing a good job and continue to try and do a good job to take action with an immediacy. And I think that's what it is. There's no need to stand up here and defend and, okay, we can read back through it, unspent in this fiscal year and the likes. Continue just to reassure us we are doing it. And that's what you did, and I appreciate it. I appreciate what you all do, putting the money to good work, good causes, tangible results to help our most destitute who need it most, to help elevate as we go. I have a card for 02. It was just a thank you to
Go for
staff,
it.
and we good.
All right, 5.02, or 4.02. Very good. Is this 4.02? Mr. Scott.
Greg Scott, we're on to the Community Block Development Grant fiscal year. This is somewhere in the department of $1.1 million that is overseen, as I understand it, by the Human Services Commission. $250,000 goes to homelessness, and about $500,000 goes to housing. And it's $100,000 to administer it. You know, if we solved this problem tomorrow, it wouldn't be fast enough. I'm impatient. My friend Carl Feiner was out there 10 years, and he died essentially from being out homeless. He contributed in his decades of work in this area, he contributed more to these city coffers and the county coffers than he ever received. Okay, it's been said in these chambers that the average homeless person is costing $120,000 a year regionally in this region. It's insulting. It's just insulting when you see how people are living out there. Allocations, huh? You know, crisis intervention, yeah, it's a little late for some people. Gordo, it's a little late. behind me. He was found behind this convenience store, the cord around his neck. A little late on that too. Wow. You know, we're spending all this money, but what pathway are we on to solving this? And you're not going to solve it through affordable housing. Affordable housing is a ruse. You're not going to have enough money, and it's just a game. I mean, what is affordable housing? Is it a statement that the market in housing and real estate is not working, or is it a testament to the fact that the market and real estate and housing is not regulated enough? There's relatively unfettered profiteering to private parties in real estate and housing, but the social injustice and the economic injustice is externalized. We're all paying for this, and it just goes on and on and on. You know, you start to wonder when you're the only audience member at the Human Services Commission. I was the only audience member there in July, and this is $1.1 million in grants. It's not like we don't have resources. It's the mode we're on. When you see what's going on with people out there, and it's just more and more numbers, more and more new faces, and when you see what's going on. And the other problem is with the grants is you're not addressing the drugs. The drugs is only growing out there, the methamphetamine, the heroin, the fentanyl. Actually, the president's wrong. It's not fentanyl that's coming in from China. It's 3 chemical analogs of fentanyl. That an analog it's similar in chemical formula but different, and they're actually more dangerous than the fentanyl itself, and all the rest of it. You know, the holy grail of cannabinol. This state is producing 15 million pounds of cannabis. It consumes 2.5 million pounds. It's out of control. But the Human Services Commission doesn't even address drugs. I mean, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make that motion, yes.
Moved by Councilmember Coomber.
Second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Carling. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. We have no public hearings. However, on matters for consideration, the 6.01 is the consideration of Elections Code Section 9212 report regarding the petition entitled Citizens Initiative Changing Development Regulations in Downtown Livermore. The main event. All right. Deal the cards. Okay. Staff report, Steve Stewart, Steve Riley, and Bob Vinn. Thank you. And I got to hand to you guys, this has been a phenomenal amount of work. I understand that we've got a lot of folks working on this, and this was a huge effort to take all this information and try to jam it together in a very short period of time. So thank you for the Herculean effort that you put out for this.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Sarah Bunting, the City Clerk and the local elections official for the City of Livermore. The item before you this evening is regarding a Citizens Initiative petition which seeks to modify development regulations in the downtown and amend regulations to allow housing at the Civic Center. The City Council received the certification for this initiative on July 29th, qualifying it for further action by the Council. At that time, there were 3 options before the City Council: to adopt the initiative, to order an informational report, or to send the initiative to a regular or special election. The City Council ordered the informational report mandated by the Elections Code to return within 30 days. In a few moments, I'll turn the presentation over to our Community Development Department staff to walk you through the contents of that report. Upon receiving the report, the City Council must again choose between the 2 remaining options, either adopting the initiative without alteration or ordering it to a regular or special election. Livermore's next regular election is November 3rd, 2020. That would be a county-wide consolidated election, and we've budgeted approximately $280,000 for the election. Adding the measure would incur approximately $15,000 in additional costs. I would like to emphasize that for initiative petitions, the Elections Code provides that a special election must be held not less than 88 days and not more than 103 days from the day you call for the election. That provides a narrow window of time to hold a special election for an initiative measure. Working with Alameda County Registrar of Voters, staff has identified December 3rd as the optimal date in that window of time for a standalone special election if you wish to call for one. The costs are estimated to range between $639,000 and to just under $800,000. Funds for a special election have not been budgeted and an appropriation would be needed. With that, I'll turn the presentation over to the Community Development Department team, and I will be available for any questions regarding elections, timing, costs, arguments, those sorts of things.
Thank you, Ms. Bunting. And you put up a phenomenal amount of work as well, too. I didn't mean to shortchange you on that because this has been tremendous effort, so thank you as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening, Mayor Marchand, members of the council. So here is the approximately 8.2 acres of city-owned property known in the downtown specific plan as catalyst sites. They're called catalyst sites because upon their development, they would stimulate near-term investment and not only transform the project site, but also transform the surrounding district through investment and revitalization. This is the zoning map out of the 2004 downtown specific plan that illustrates the boundaries and sub-areas for the downtown core. That 8.2 acres is generally located in those areas, bound by L Street on the west and Livermore Ave on the south, on the east, Railroad Avenue on the north. And you can see in this diagram, for example, where the existing specific plan calls for parking facilities and a hotel in that sub-district, as well as distributing the other land uses in the downtown core. The initiative would modify the approved plan that's shown on the screen now, and we'll look at those modifications in a little more detail. Council did approve this version of the downtown plan, which was developed over a year-long process in 2017 and early 2018. It involved extensive community input, research, and expert consultation, and resulted in a methodically composed mix of uses at specific locations and at market-supported scales. The approved plan is a refined version of the East Side Hotel Plan alternative presented to the City Council in January of 2018. This plan is responsive to the community priorities to provide sufficient parking for all planned uses, celebrates the community's history with the new Stockman's Park, maintains community character with a scale and design that complements the existing small town feel, provides extensive open space, including Stockman's Park and Veterans Park, and minimizes traffic impacts. Listed on this slide are some of the key features of the approved plan, including a 135-room boutique hotel on the east side of Livermore Avenue, up to 2,000 square feet of conference space in the hotel, about 20,000 square feet of retail, a 20,000 square foot Science and Society Center, 15,000 square foot black box theater, 130 workforce multifamily housing units, 3.32 acres of public open space, and a little under half acre of private open space. The initiative presents an alternative development concept to replace that approved plan and amend components of the city's general plan, the state certified housing element, which is part of the general plan, the downtown specific plan, and the development code. The initiative divides the project site into 9 sub-districts. You can see those on the screen here. And each of those sub-districts is described in the initiative text and assigned permitted land uses and development standards. The sub-districts modify the provisions in the downtown specific plan, including permitted uses, development intensity, building height, setbacks, and those sorts of development standards. And these sub-districts are the primary implementation tool for the initiative, establishing the zoning for the sites and a range of various uses. The initiative also includes an illustrative site plan that shows one possible iteration of how the site could be developed. And again, it's important to understand that the initiative does not require this plan, but it is a concept of how the site could be developed. Given the variability under the subdistricts, there's considerable uncertainty in how the project might be developed, and we'll look at that variability and uncertainty over the next few slides. Given the conceptual nature of this plan, a comprehensive analysis or an apples-to-apples comparison to the city-approved plan was very difficult. So the report analysis relies on what would be legally binding agreement or elements of the initiative for the foundation of its assumptions, which is essentially that sub-district plan that we just looked at and the regulations in the text. Where there's no source to determine the initiative build-out or implications, we relied on the site plan for information such as the siting of buildings and the configuration and specific design and attributes of parks and open space. So again, the initiative leaves many parameters of the site's development uncertain. The initiative depicts for example, it depicts a parking structure and retail building on the east side of Livermore Avenue next to the Bankhead Theater. But the initiative text also allows a Center for Science, Culture, and Education and/or a black box theater in the subdistrict with approval of a conditional use permit. The initiative also includes two special condition subdistricts, 2.45 here and 2.48 over on the western portion of the site. The initiative of the site plan depicts both the theater and the science center within these designated subdistricts. However, the initiative's text specifies that the city may permit construction of the Black Box Theater and Center for Science, Cultural, and Education in several different locations, not only in the designated subdistricts. And so, for example, regarding the Black Box Theater, could be in 3 different locations, including 2.45, up here where it's shown in 2.48, 2.45 in the hotel subdistrict. There's the Black Box Theater shown in this plan, or over here on 2.44. The initiative also includes a range of alternative uses in subdistrict 2.48, for example, retail sales, restaurant, and/or office uses may be permitted if a Science and Society Center, Culture, and Education or Black Box Theater is not commenced by 2025. So the 9212 report in your packet evaluates the initiative land use totals now shown on the screen. And these are based primarily, again, on measurements of the subdistricts and zoning or other regulatory text in the initiative where feasible. And then the site plan, again, was used where there's uncertainty. So for both the city's plan and the initiative, the analysis assumes the maximum development potential for each land use. The 9212 report analysis summarizes key topics, including implementation schedule and resources, open space, consistency with key learnings from the Downtown Steering Committee, parking and traffic, affordable housing, development partners, and solid waste and delivery access. Regarding open space, the text includes a statement that more than 3 acres of park space would be provided, but it does not specifically state how that acreage is derived. The report's analysis is based on measurements of the initiative's subdistrict map shown on the screen of areas 2.42 and 2.41. For the park space, that measures approximately 2.37 acres of park space. Other open space areas depicted on the site plan are located on parcels that are primarily intended for other uses. For example, some of the open space appears on this cultural parcel here. The uses in this subject district allow up to a 30,000 square foot science and society center or other uses. However, the footprint shown on this plan is about a little less than 6,000 square feet. So if it was built out to its maximum square footage, there would be less room for open space on that subdistrict. Another example is in subdistrict 2.43, where an access cul-de-sac off of Railroad Avenue is shown. The city actually has a disposition and development agreement with Red Bear Inc. To develop commercial uses compatible in surrounding Blacksmith Square. And this drawing shows a cul-de-sac and some open space there, but it does allow commercial to be developed. And again, we do have an existing disposition and development agreement with a commercial development to build on that parcel. So again, the initiative states it has over 3 acres of park space, but 2 park subdistricts add up to 2.37 acres of public open space. The remaining open space is then assumed to be private, totals about 3/4 of an acre for a total of 3.12 acres of open space. The city's approved plan has 3.32 acres of open space and a little under ½ acre of private open space for a total of 3.78 acres of open space, which is over a ½ acre more total than the initiative. One aspect of the initiative regarding open space is that it moves about 1/3 of an acre from Stockman's Park to the Central Park subdistrict. That's shown in the crosshatch there. And this total overlaps about 41% of the size of Stockman's Park. So this is a clear inconsistency with the Stockman's agreement and easement. So we also looked at consistency with the key learnings from the Downtown Steering Committee, and based on several experts from consultants and city staff, shown on the slide, in the fields of public and private finance, traffic, commercial and residential and hotel markets, hotel developers, and urban designers. And the initiative contains a mix of land uses, and some of those locations and sizes are not consistent with the key learnings and expert recommendations. For example, the hotel, the key learnings said that hotel should face onto Livermore Avenue for maximum visibility, and an 100 to 135 room hotel would have internal interest rate of return that would incentivize a builder to actually build a hotel. The initiative calls for a 160 room hotel. The maximum regarding retail, any sort of new demand outside of residential or hotel development is essentially 0. And the mix of uses in the approved downtown plan, primarily residential and hotel, would support an additional 10 to 20,000 square feet of retail. So anything more than that could have significant impacts to existing businesses on 1st, 2nd, 3rd Streets and other parts of the downtown. And then regarding open space, the key learnings said that should be well organized and activated, and that residential, hotel, and retail are the primary activating uses there. The initiative moves housing across Veterans Way and then further away from the open space, closer to the existing businesses in back of house along First Street. And there are also fewer cultural and retail uses to frame Stockman's Park under the initiative site plan. The open space under the initiative would likely have increased costs due to the need for increased security measures and patrol, and would be less synergistic with residential, retail, and cultural uses. There are also consistency issues with parking and phasing, affordable housing, and access for solid waste and delivery service. So the city's council direction through this process has been to provide pre-development parking levels during construction, and then also provide parking to serve the new uses as they come online. The construction of the hotel shown in the initiative site plan would displace existing surface parking supporting downtown businesses. And if the Central Park were also constructed concurrently, there would be a parking deficit of approximately 300 parking spaces until the completion of both the East Side Garage and the smaller L Street Garage. And so the initiative would essentially require constructing all 3 parking garages in order to avoid a parking deficit, which of course then would result in increased costs and delay for the downtown hotel. They had to wait till the parking was in. Regarding affordable housing, the city acquired the bulk of the project site using approximately $14.5 million from the city's inclusionary housing funds. The reduced number and size of affordable units proposed by the initiative may not be adequate to repay that $14.5 million, and this would result in the need to repay that fund with general fund dollars. Further analysis would be necessary in order to really give you some good numbers around that. But the size of the initiative units are estimated to be an average of about 540 square feet, and therefore would accommodate 1-bedroom and studio units. And that mix of units is much less competitive for tax credit financing under the current tax credit environment. The 130 units in the approved plan will have an equal amount, about 25% each, of studios, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units to make the project optimally competitive for tax credit financing and other funding sources. The unit sizes under that would average about 777 square feet. And then regarding solid waste and delivery access, there is no coordinated solid waste collection identified in the initiative. The smaller L Street Garage got rid of the solid waste facility that would have served some of the new uses and then the existing businesses along First Street. So each of those businesses would need to provide their own garbage service. And there's also challenges regarding turnaround and access to some of the back of house where you have needs for turnaround space and deliveries to serve those businesses. The city is currently moving forward with private and nonprofit partners to construct the improved plan. These partners in the city have already invested significant funds and resources to move forward with their projects. Not listed in this slide, but of great significance is also the Stockman's easement that was authorized by the council in early 2018. So the initiative modifies the types and locations of cultural uses incorporated into the approved plan and has a significant impact on the plan that was proposed and understood at the time of the Stockman's agreement. For example, the initiative relocates the Black Box Theater, which was to be the focal point of the Stockman's Park, and with its outdoor stage, and moves that up to the north, so it's no longer framing Stockman's Park. And the Science and Society Center is moved over to the western part of the site and out of Stockman's Park altogether. No longer framing Stockman's Park. So this slide just summarizes some of the agreements that are in place with our development partners for the cultural uses with Livermore Shakespeare Associates, Livermore Science and Society Center, and Red Bear Property Managing for the commercial, and also Eden Housing for the housing project. Staff estimates that implementing the development under the initiative would take another 4 years or more after the election if the initiative passes. And some of those steps are in the bulleted list up there would basically be going back to start, preparing an RFP to develop an outreach plan for the public to weigh in on where some of those uses would be preferably located. We establish a citizen steering committee, conduct public engagement, prepare other RFPs to get other partners online who would want to develop the new plan. Prepare the new technical studies to back up the environmental document that would have to be redone, including traffic, market demand, and infrastructure and costs. Create a new phasing program to ensure adequate parking exists throughout, as well as financing. And then I mentioned the environmental document need to be redone, and then go through the entitlements and design work that some of our folks, like our partners like the hotel, have already gone through once. So finally, staff does recommend that the council adopt a resolution accepting this 9212 report. Due to the lack of clarity in parts of the initiative, the required analysis was very complex, and a more detailed, longer report was not possible within the 30-day time frame. And so the council may direct staff to provide additional supplemental materials to the public that analyzes the initiatives in greater detail if you so choose. And so with that, staff is recommending the council adopt a resolution either adopting or approving the initiative, or placing the measure on ballot, as Ms. Bunting explained, on November 3rd, 2020, or at a special election likely to be in December. And then if you do choose to place the initiative on the ballot, the council should also determine whether to appoint a subcommittee to prepare primary and rebuttal arguments opposing the initiative. With that concludes our staff presentation. Our Assistant City Engineer, Bob Vinn, Principal Planner Steve Riley, and I, and the rest of the team are available for questions.
Thank you. A very comprehensive report. Questions at this point? Vice Mayor Carling.
Yeah, thanks to all of you for a very thorough report, given the limited time frame. You talked about parking, which we all recall that was the #1 issue from the citizens when we had the outreach program, and I understand the issue about the parking structures, but at the end of the day, when all is said and done, can you give us the number of total parking spaces, one plan versus the other?
Yes. Total parking is estimated to be 895 spaces for the initiative plan and 850 spaces for the city-approved plan.
1150?
850.
850.
Versus what?
Versus 895. But when you look at actual demand created by those two plans, the initiative provides a surplus of 29 spaces. The approved plan, the city-approved plan, a surplus of 99 spaces.
So 99 more spaces.
70 more spaces.
70 more spaces than the city-approved plan.
Right, based on demand.
Based on demand. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Monroe.
I was very struck by the fact that but the restart would mean that we would be 5 years out from where we are right now. And I'm wondering if there's a sense or information on what the effect of that would be on being able to restart some of the processes. What does that do to the city's credibility with regard to our partners or future partners, on the one hand, and on the other hand, and number two, what does that do to the current downtown businesses?
It demonstrates a significant level of uncertainty around the site, so that's likely to repel commercial, hotel, and other investors not willing to get into that sort of uncertainty and controversy. I'm sorry, Councilman Monroe, the second part of your
for
question.
downtown businesses, one of the issues that they've had to deal with is both just the construction impact of having a project stretch out over a long period of time. The first pieces of that, of course, have been in place as we have done demolition and begun the construction of things like Veterans Way. Extending that build-out period of time simply extends that time of essentially uncertainty, and one of the things that happens during that is that business drops off while the construction is lengthened. One of the things they need to be doing as businesses is basing, their future expansion and operational businesses on the reality that surrounds them, as well as the plans to be implemented. Extending that time makes it more difficult for them to do that. One of our challenges, of course, when we did First Street, was the significant impacts that had on those businesses. The only good news from that is that was a relatively limited 9-month process, a process that stretches out years, adds additional complexity to their business plan.
Councilor Cooper?
Yeah, just a quick one about the no delays in the ad I saw in the Independent last week. Financially feasible and no delays. And I found that hard to believe, just especially going over the slide you just presented. I thank you for that. But when you went through the process that we'd have to go through again, I'm saying, wow, we just did this. But would you, along with myself, characterize this as simply being untruthful to the Livermore residents, that there will be no delays and this is a financially feasible project? Because it sure doesn't work out that way to me.
So there will be significant delays associated with this project. As Mr. Stewart pointed out, there are a number of different options within the zoning for the initiative. And so your staff foresees that we would need to go back and basically start at the beginning and talk to the community about what would you like in each of the sub-districts, because there are a number of options. So we've estimated 4 years. If we get into an economic downturn during that time, that could be extended.
Because, I mean, I was sitting at those tables, too, and, before I was elected, and I've heard everything from the Taj Mahal to a big parking lot. I mean, so every table had 7 or 8 different ideas on how to do this, and to go through that again is, I don't know.
Councilmember Monroe, follow-up? Oh, lost track? Okay. Councilmember Warner?
Just on the topic of delays, I actually think that your estimate is very optimistic, and I don't think it includes all the possibilities that could hang us up. And in particular, there are 2 very significant ones in my mind. One is there are potential for lawsuits because certain contracts are being violated, possibly. I mean, they're not going to go simple here, in my mind. And the other one is, with this amount of delay, and you look at the city finances and what the cost pressures are likely to be because of the design here is going to require substantial subsidies, in my mind, it's very likely that we would, in order to fund what's envisioned in the initiative, would require a tax measure to pass. And now that alone doesn't happen overnight. So you could add multiple years between the lawsuits and the tax measure that would be required. You could easily double this time frame.
Councilmember Monroe?
It's returned. We have. I heard extra staff time in there. Should this initiative pass and this plan go forward? We just heard about East Avenue. On previous evenings, we've talked about other issues facing the city. We've heard about homelessness tonight. And we've talked about other issues. I'm wondering, is there any way to think about how, I think somebody referred to this as sucking the oxygen out of the air. What effect does that have on our ability to move forward on anything else?
Council has adopted the implementation of downtown as one of your primary goals over the last several years, and we've made significant progress. As you see by the team before you this evening, the team in the audience and the team you're aware of back in the office who have worked on this, that requires significant resources to do that. Those are some of the same key folks that would work on a variety of other options if the council had different goals and different priorities on that. So I think you're correct to say that it affects the timing, amount, and diversity of other challenges that the city can work on as we continue to work through downtown.
Okay. Yes, Vice Mayor? Okay. Again, I echo Councilmember Warner's concern that the delays and also since it was pointed out that there could be a deficit of 300 some odd parking spaces were the hotel to go in first, the Initiative Hotel. The availability of money, because we're now having to build 3 parking garages instead of 1. And these things are breathtakingly expensive. What is the debt load that the city currently has versus what would be required to build 3 parking structures simultaneously, let alone the disruption of the downtown while we have that deficit of parking spaces?
So while we do have preliminary numbers for the costs of that, those need further refinement. So if the council would like additional information on both impacts as well as costs, especially related to the infrastructure and parking issues, we can develop that further. But I guess a short answer would be it's generally not cheaper to build the same amount of parking using more structures, especially structures that are combined with other uses. That's generally more expensive per space. Generally, the smaller the garage gets, generally the cost per space goes up. But beyond that, to quantify that, we would need some further research, and we could certainly perform that if the council needs that information.
Okay. The point about this land was purchased with $14 million in affordable housing funds, and there's been quite a bit of discussion about what would the cost be depending on how much affordable housing was actually delivered. I noticed in the initiative, it actually deletes the language of affordable housing in the initiative from the text, but Mr. Stewart mentioned this. What would ultimately be the cost to the city were the smaller number of units and the smaller units to be built? I know this is we don't have this, but I think that'd be a good number to have come back to us eventually.
Absolutely, and we can also do that kind of work if you so direct.
Okay, consider it directed. So, thank you. Okay, any further questions or? All right. Pardon me? Yeah, you want to take a 5-minute? Okay, before we launch into about 30 cards here, let's take a quick 5-minute break and stretch our legs, and I'm not going anywhere. All right, thank you. 5-minute break. Good evening. Good evening. Hello again. Calling the meeting back to order. We're back at round 2 of the Livermore City Council from August 26th. So welcome. We're on 6.01, which is the consideration of the 9212 report on the Downtown Initiative. So with that, we've just gone through the staff report. We've taken some questions. Any further questions before I open up the public comment period? Okay. We've got about 30 cards here, so I'm going to ask people to keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. And again, if you really agree with somebody and you don't feel compelled to repeat the whole thing, just say, yep, I agree with what he said or she said, and then we'll move it along. But I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard. So with that, Rick Nordyke, Tamara Royce, Linda Milanese. Mr. Nordyke.
Good evening. I had some thoughts recently about the downtown. The regional theater has been coming up in conversations and articles and whatnot recently, and I'm not sure why. First of all, it's been referred to as a proposed theater when it was the approved regional theater as the 4-1 vote here. Thank you for approving that. In 2011 or 2010. The mayor was the lead cheerleader to push the project through. The only reason it wasn't built was the last-second raid on Livermore's redevelopment funds by the governor. Otherwise, we'd be into the 7th season this year. Any connection to the Central Park project is specious. Joan Sepala has been taking some unfair heat over the downtown issue. I don't know her real well, but enough to know she wouldn't be telling her petitioners to act out and lie when getting signatures. To say she is attacking people is absurd. I'm not sure how people can criticize others for simply being thorough in exercising their constitutional rights to the fullest extent. The city has been claiming transparency from the start of the project, but their actions say otherwise. One example took place with the workshops held a couple years ago. I'd heard that the presenter wasn't exactly being neutral in his description of their various plans, so I was curious to see how it was going. At the one I attended, the moderator, David Early, would recite his good and bad points of the various plans, making it pretty clear what site he and the city preferred. At this point, we at our group tables were instructed to draw our best versions or scenarios for the downtown layout with papers and crayons. Despite all the prodding at the end of the evening, the West Side still came out ahead on the tally sheet for preferences. The hotel should be on the West Side as it offers the most space for a full-service hotel and a restaurant. People staying at a hotel usually are new in town and may not have the best idea for where to go for breakfast and/or dinners. The existing East Side parking lot has the most convenient drop-off and ADA-friendly parking available for the Bankhead Theater, and that would be lost if the hotel were to go there. And lastly, the argument that the East Side offers the only location for a presence for entering the downtown from the north, that's without merit. A good architect team could do the same from the West Side, and to say otherwise would be disingenuous. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Nordyke. Tamara Royce, Linda Milanese, Jonna Thompson.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond to the 9212 report. The Central Park plan is neither uncertain nor unclear. It creates development options for the downtown site, giving the City Council flexibility to create the most workable plan for the community with the Central Park at its heart. The claim that the Central Park plan will require a completely new community-wide outreach process is ridiculous. The plan already spells out the major components and where they are to be located. The council can work with the developers of the Theater and Science Center to determine their siting needs as allowed by the flexibility in the initiative. The council can then conduct public hearings to get input from the community. This is an example of the misleading tactics that are being used to scare people about the Central Park plan. The alleged 4-year delay referenced in the 9212 report is another scare tactic. There is a major hotel developer waiting in the wings, as has been well documented by many sources, if Presidio is not interested in developing a West Side hotel. It is reasonable to think that the current retail developer will continue its involvement as well. As a result, the RFP process for the hotel and retail components would not be drawn out. Then both developers could go forward under the Central Park plan as quickly as they could in the city's plan. Construction is not slated to begin on the East Side Hotel until May 2021. By then, adequate parking could be made available on a surface lot built at K Street and Railroad and in the I Street Garage, which is, by the way, is not part of the Central Park plan. Furthermore, under the pending development agreements with the housing and cultural component developers, the Black Box Theater and Science Center are not scheduled to take out their building permits until August 2023, assuming they raise sufficient funds by then to start construction. Eden Housing is not expected to commence construction until June 2024. The Stockman's Park, which is in both plans, is going to break ground this year. As to the Central Park, only the portion near the West Side Hotel would have to be completed by the time the hotel opened, which would be in the city's responsibility. In other words, the alleged delay is manufactured. It must also be emphasized that if the council is truly concerned about delay, it should put the initiative on the March 2020 ballot, which will not result in an extra expense to the taxpayers. The 9212 report also criticizes the parking component of the Central Central Park Plan is not well distributed as compared to the city plan. In fact, the Central Park Plan has more parking in the area where it is most needed, near Livermore Avenue. People like convenient parking. Some people, namely the elderly and the disabled, need parking close to their destination. The Central Park Plan recognizes these concerns by placing a garage near the Bankhead Theater, Blacksmith Square, movie theater, nearby restaurants and businesses, and soon Stockman's Park. The city plan will provide 201 fewer parking spaces than those available before recent construction began, and 316 fewer parking spaces than the Central Park Plan will offer in this critical area. These are only a few examples of the problems with the 9212 report. The Central Park Plan can be built in a reasonable time with a better hotel to benefit downtown businesses and the wine industry, and better parking to benefit the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Milanese, Jonna Thompson, Steve Larinaga.
The Save Downtown posters that have been appearing around town are a misnomer as far as I'm concerned. They're for saving the city's plan, not downtown. And it's a plan that doesn't reflect the priorities people decided on during the outreach process, priorities that are supposed to be driving the development. It's ironic that the Save Downtown plan proposes housing on the remaining patch of open space in the center of town, while the Central Park plan tries to save that open space and is accused of destroying downtown. I've worked hard to get signatures for the initiative and for the last referendum because I believe in what they stand for, and I don't threaten people when I do it either. All the silly talk about the 2,000-seat theater and BART to downtown as our ulterior motivation is ridiculous. So many untruths have been passed along enough times that people have started to believe them. But one truth I know for sure is that voting on the initiative would end the uncertainty of which plan is the one most voters want. Election results for this specific issue would be real data that can start to mend this divided community. No further outreach would be necessary with the definitive election results in hand. RFPs would be easy because we have a hotel person willing to build in either location. We need to vote soon, not in a special election, but in March in the primary to avoid the $800,000 special election price tag that we keep hearing thrown around. We need to vote on March 2020 to avoid holding up the city's established timeline. We can finish the I Street Garage and Stockman's Park before we get into our differences. We need to vote in a truly democratic way, unobstructed by premature development agreements that undermine the voting process. We need to vote with both sides ready to accept the results, win or lose.
Could I ask a question?
Councilmember Warner.
Just in the interest of possibly saving some time, this is the second time we've heard a request for March 2020. So I'd like to ask the city attorney, what are our legal options?
So as indicated in the staff report that was prepared by staff, the questions before the council are, one, to either adopt the initiative as is, or two, to send it to an election. The council has a choice, should it go to an election, to either send it to the next jurisdiction's next regular election that occurs not less than 88 days after the date you call for it. Your next regular election for Livermore is November 2020. If you were to call for a special election, your next election date would be not less than 88 nor more than 103 days. You have a window of time for a special election. That window of time does not extend to March 2020. So your choices for an election are either November 2020 or a special election within 88 to 103 days of tonight.
So March 2020 is not an option. And if we held an election per the city clerk, if we held a special election between 88 days and 103 days, as you pointed out, the cost would be somewhere between $640,000 and $800,000.
That is correct. That's with the understanding that even if the county registrar of voters could accommodate that.
Right. But understanding that March 2020 is not an option.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Don Milanese. I'm reading this for Jonna Thompson, who could not be here this evening. Let me begin. I understand the frustration of having traveled some distance along a path only to stop and then turn back because you took the wrong path. You took the wrong path when you turned your backs on the preferences of the majority of the outreach participants and instead embraced a wholly different plan that came out of the blue afterwards from some group calling itself the United Livermore. Had you listened to the voices of the residents who cared enough about their city to participate in the outreach process, we wouldn't have to resort to the initiative process in order for our voices to be heard. Another outreach process shouldn't be necessary if the initiative passes. The outreach has been done. You just need to be guided by its outcome as you should have done 2 years ago. The honorable thing for you to do now at this juncture is to put the initiative on the March 2020 ballot and then abide by the will of the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Milanese. Steve Larinaga, Rochelle Snedecor, Brooke Witherspoon.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, staff. Appreciate your time for being here. My name is Steve Larinaga with Sandia Laboratory Federal Credit Union and Chairman of the Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, as well as a voter for here in Livermore. I am here to encourage you to continue to move forward with the current approved plan for the downtown Livermore. Thank you also for conducting the 9212 report. Since the city must now adopt a plan on how to move forward with this ridiculous initiative, I would like to recommend that it is placed in the regular election in November 2020. It would be lots less costly than having a special election. I believe there are much better ways the money can be spent to help others in our community other than waste it on this senseless initiative. I believe our downtown businesses are in need of a hotel and the amenities that have already been thoroughly and thought out and planned for. We need to continue the current plan and move forward. We need to keep the promises that we have made years ago with the Stockman's Park and having a hotel in the downtown area, not extending the completion date any longer. I am confident our Livermore voters will vote down this waste of money and time initiative. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Larinaga. Rochelle Snedecor, Brooke Witherspoon, Elizabeth Judge.
Hello again. First of all, I guess I could just kind of encapsulate it right away and just say, do not adopt the initiative. Basically, I refer to this now as the Downtown Disrespect Plan. And let me just point those out. Number one, disrespect of the parking need that must be evenly distributed out of respect to all downtown businesses, the entire neighborhood, not only focused on the needs of the Bankhead Theater. Full downtown is expecting parking to be accommodated. Disrespect to our churches and faith-based community has worked tirelessly on meeting the needs of our seniors needing affordable housing. They're ready to go. We're talking about homeless. How many of the people in interfaith housing now, our seniors could end up homeless? How many are waiting on the list and may end up finding themselves in that position? Disrespect to the Stockman Association promise. The park deserves to be their vision and to have that vision realized. Disrespect towards the businesses. I could go on for an hour and a half on that one, but I'm going to break it into a couple of pieces. Disrespect towards the businesses who individually have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars individually on their property tenant improvements, historic building renovations and rehabilitations, and upgrades. The average property owner downtown does not pay for that. Their tenant pays for that. I think the Riboli winery is a prime example. That was a raw, old building, and it now has Monica's, and it's astounding the money that she had to put into that to get it usable. She won't see a turn of profit for at least 10 to 15 years. She's now buried under construction loans. So anybody thinking they're rolling in dough, you know, that's not happening. And they've done that to preserve and bring life to our downtown. Disrespect of the First Street core backing up to First Street. Housing right behind them when right now their excitement over the city plan is extending their patios in the back, having visibility to things going on at Stockman's Park. Now you're going to put up 3 to 4 levels of housing right next to them. So you've also taken away their ability for any kind of deliveries or anything that has to happen for business to take place. Disrespect to the community who elected you to continue on. I'm sure that was disappointing to see those results because some control got lost. You heard from the community that you were on the right path. Disrespect towards the Shakespeare Association, their patrons and their supporters who are working tirelessly to make this dream and this need in our community come to fruition. Disrespect towards the Science Center and the Brain Trust that I can't wait to be able to finally hang out with these people and learn what the heck science is all about. And disrespect towards you. And it's okay. I've been disrespected by Joan Sepula since the day I was hired. As a matter of fact, when my picture was taken in the announcement 19 years ago, came out about this downtown getting a new executive director, it was on the obituary page. So I couldn't send that to my parents because I thought it would freak them out. So I just carefully think. So we have to band together. Downtown needs you to save it.
Thank you. Brooke Witherspoon, Elizabeth Judge, Greg Scott.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Brooke Witherspoon, and I am the owner of the First Street Ale House. I just wanted to take a moment to express my support of the city plan and urge you to continue moving forward. Over the course of the last 6 or so years, I have played an active role in attending meetings, planning sessions, and community workshops. I have attended each of these meetings with an open mind and a strong desire to support and understand a plan that benefits our entire city. Being as though this development is directly in my backyard, I have probably stayed more engaged than most due to the significant impact that it will have on my business. I have never had a specific agenda, but we have been in business on First Street for nearly 20 years, so it is obviously quite important to me that I will still be able to do business within the constraints of the new plan. As a business owner, I have felt extremely supported, listened to, by the city staff and council every step of the way, as I have shared the logistical needs of doing business on First Street. I was very disheartened as I dove into the Central Park plan. This plan proposes to eliminate our back patio, to possibly, and eliminate possibly any rear access that we have to our building. It puts residential in direct conflict with our operating hours and makes deliveries and trash removal, if not impossible, at least very impractical. As a business who has done everything we can to provide a welcoming, family-friendly community environment for the last 20 years, we are quite hurt that our business's needs are not being considered in the Central Park plan. We would love to be able to continue to serve our community, but the Central Park plan would make it difficult to do so, not only for us at the Ale House, but for many of the other businesses backing up to this development as well. I urge you to move forward with the approved city plan and do so confidently, knowing that you have downtown business support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Witherspoon. Elizabeth Judge, Greg Scott, Michael Frederick.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and staff. Where there's a will, there's a way, as the saying goes. And it appears that if the city wished to place the initiative on the primary ballot next March, it might be able to do so. What I'm hearing is maybe a set of semantics. I know that you can't put a special election on in March, a standalone special election in March, because it's a deadline business. But there's already a primary election going on, and it would seem to benefit everybody if that could be made possible, if there was a will to do that. Unfortunately, I see this 9212 report and the request for it primarily as a mean-spirited effort to produce a propaganda tool against the initiative. Taking notes as I read it was very depressing, because to me, how you have gone about this whole project flies in the face of good civic leadership, because you are responsible for doing a public outreach process and you threw out the results. You took from it only a list of priorities, which could have been acquired with a simple mailing to the voters. Then you focused only on the first priority, parking, and most of that is now far away from where we need it. And we've got valet parking that's going to cause a lot of traffic problems that I don't see in this report. You are jerking the public around despite knowing there was opposition from the beginning. You made an initiative necessary, and then another referendum as you marched ahead anyway with the hotel development, and soon will with a few more. Yet as I read on, I ran across the section on implementation schedule and resources, and I'm afraid I just laughed out loud. That section implies that after the initiative passes on the ballot, the council will have to create, quote, another steering committee of community stakeholders, and then do a public outreach process to determine preferred land use outcomes. Why do another outreach process when you've taught us that you only do that sort of thing for show? This report insults the intelligence of the voters, and they will see right through it. If you had heeded the results of the first public outreach, we would be not in this mess. We'd be 18 months ahead right now with less division in the city. The citizens spoke, but you refused to listen, and I'm afraid you still refuse to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Judge. Greg Scott, Michael Frederick, Joan Green.
Greg Scott, and whether what plan comes about is not my issue. My issue is homelessness. But I get irked here when homelessness and housing is brought into the argument. For example, in one letter to the mailbox in the Independent, the argument was made that the more open central plan is going to bring more homelessness into the area. Earth to Livermore, you have a growing homeless problem. You're going to have more homeless in this area no matter which plan it is in equivalent numbers, especially with the pathway you're on in regard to homelessness. On housing, there was another letter to the editor. It was called Debunking the Central Park Plan, and the argument was made about 46 less affordable housing units with the Central Park Plan. Now, I don't mean to defend one plan or the other. I don't really, it's not my issue what Livermore picks, again, but 46 affordable housing units is the plan. Go stand on a bridge in the morning and watch the westbound traffic on 580, or stand on a bridge and watch the eastbound traffic on 580, and the legacy of a downtown development in Livermore is 46 units. This same letter talked about the size of those units being small, 400 square feet or something. I guess, and that is too small for, let's say, a couple and a baby. I guess the size that somebody'd have a choice, huh? They could live in a small unit and maybe see their offspring during waking hours, or they could live in Escalon and not see their offspring during waking hours. Yeah, that'd be a tough choice. So when it's brought into, the housing is brought into the argument on the plans, it's very frustrating. And when you consider the amount of housing in the point in time count, it's 179 that are unsheltered. And I loved it. Inclusive housing was mentioned here. Oh, I love that term, inclusive, yeah. And especially when you look at the requirements for the amount of income needed for affordable housing. Yeah, no oxygen in the room, all right. You know, so these are specious arguments as far as, you know, bringing the homelessness in to what plan you're going to choose, and the affordable housing arguments. So other than that, good luck to you, Livermore. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Michael Frederick, Joan Green, Gene King.
If you don't want delays and you want certainty, accept the initiative. I'm really skeptical about the statement that we cannot have the initiative election in March of 2020. But if not, then, as costly as it is, we should have it probably sometime this year as a special election. Do you really want this to go on for another year? I've taken a break from coming to these meetings because I really couldn't take the degree of vitriol that spread every meeting. I completely agree with Mayor Michon's statement that there is just way too much acrimony. There were two gentlemen here earlier tonight that were asked to a meeting to see if there was a possibility of a compromise. They come back and call Joan a liar, okay? Do any of you know Joan to be a liar? You know, I guess I really question that. She's contributed this to the city in so many ways, you know, much more than most of the people in this room. I just can't imagine that we're going to go on this way for another year. Are you going to, well, we do have armed guards at the door. I was going to say, I mean, maybe more. Can't this council provide the leadership to find a mechanism to reach a compromise that both sides can accept? I had a long conversation with Councilman Comber about 3 weeks ago at the farmers market, and at first we were not happy with each other, but it was very useful. I don't know what that mechanism would be, but there just seems to be something that we can do. I just don't think we need another extended outreach. It's just going to cause more conflict. You're going to need, you know, metal detectors at the doors and, you know, the whole business. Isn't it possible to find a group of people from both sides who are able to listen to each other, not people that are saying, you're a liar, but that can listen to both people's position and come out with something that we can all agree on and move forward? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Frederick. Joan Green, Jean King, Jan Bravant.
Good evening, and to the mayor and the staff. And I have a letter to read for a Vic Avila. He's a resident of Livermore. He says, to mayor and council, I believe the council did not honor the wishes and priorities of the voters. The approved plan is a council-approved plan, not a city-approved plan, since the city is made up of citizens. The area between the housing units is not a real public park. People in the next 5 to 10 decades will navigate their way through the housing development. They won't intuitively think of it as a park and will think nothing other than we need to get through this to get where we're going. If the initiative recommended Central Park Plan is ultimately approved, people will be attracted to the park. They will want to come there, bring their out-of-town relatives and friends, children and dogs. A place to refresh, relax, mull about, not just a place to navigate through. It is a decision that will last for a very long time, as illustrated by Carnegie Park. Get it right the first time. It should be emblematic of Livermore, spacious, inviting small town, not a crowded piece of property. Vic Avila. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Jean King, Jan Bravant, John Stein.
Good evening, council and staff and mayor. I am speaking for myself and not on behalf of any organization. The earliest possible election day would be good. And I would like to have a December 2010 vote, 2019 vote. We passed 2010. Really am behind. I do realize the added cost is not good, though it is not large in comparison to the total cost of either plan. Waiting until November 2020 is not good, but there is a good compromise. I ask you to put the initiative on the March 3rd primary ballot. An expert on the election issues has stated that it can go on the March 3rd state ballot and cost no more than its placement on the November 2020 ballot. Though it is a, quote, special election, its only restriction is more than 88 days. This is California Election Code 9241. And I'm going to read part of it. It says, if the legislative body does not entirely repeal the ordinance against which the petition is filed, the legislative body shall permit the ordinance to the voters either at the next regular municipal election occurring not less than 88 days after the order of the legislative body, or at a special election called for the purpose not less than 88 days after the order of the legislative body. It does not restrict it with the other election code that says it has to be within the 103 days. So if you would please look at 9241, that allows the election to be on March 3rd, and the expert in legislative actions and elections has said that that can apply here, and since it is a statewide election, it will not cost the $800,000. It will cost the same amount as on the November election. So I ask you to please look that up and make sure that that is true. Okay, I would also like to say that the 9212 does not describe the parking accurately. The fact is that there are 2 parking garages instead of the one that the city has in their plan. The I Street garage is going to go in no matter what. But the garage on the east side that we would like to have in the Central Park plan has the parking where it's really needed on the east side, not just for the Bankhead Theater, which you all know I support very much, but it's for the movie theaters, for the Blacksmith Square, for all the businesses that go from K Street east to McLeod Street. Okay. I just want to respond to a couple of things that have been said, where it was also said in the 9212 report, oh, I talked too slow. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
There's a reference made to Elections Code 9241 with regard to the calling for a special election. I'd like to point out, both for the council as well as for the public, that election applies to referendums. That's not what we have here today. That's for referendums. That's an action to challenge, and Ms. King did quote that correctly. It's an action to challenge and repeal an ordinance adopted by the city. This is not that. This is an initiative to create law. That law is governed by Elections Code 9215, which reads that the special election, the city council may call for a special election before the next regular election, but not less than 88 days, no more than 103 days after the order for election. That's the law with regard to initiatives.
Okay, so we're dealing with an initiative here, and 9241 is only for referendums.
That is correct.
Okay, so we're back to the fact that it's November 2020. Okay.
Or a special election.
Or a special election.
So I just want to, because I guess I wasn't successful in us saving time, but I mean, the point is, we have a city attorney who knows what he's doing. We have references to some unknown expert saying something. It's really not helpful.
Yeah, I got a question. A lot of the signature gatherers, I talked to a lot of them for the initiative, said that they were not going to request a special election. That this was going to be for the next general election, and that they weren't going to request a special election. Since they told the signature, the voters, that they weren't asking for a special election, does that now mean that they acquired these signatures under false pretense because now there's a demand for a special election?
I'll leave that to you to make that conclusion. What I can speak to is, would it be a violation of 18600 of the Elections Code? The answer would be no, because that comment speaks to procedure. Is that appropriate? If those comments were made, it may not have been appropriate, but it's not a violation of the Elections Code.
Okay. But never mind. Okay, very good. Thank you. Jan Brabant, John Stein, Neil Herrick.
Mayor, council, and office staff. My name is Jan Brabant, and I am going to be a little more successful, and I'm going to say that I do agree with what Linda Melanie said and also what Elizabeth Judge said. Okay, so that being said, I do have a couple of things. One, I think the 3-car parking garages would be better for location because they're going to be scattered throughout the downtown. They're not going to be all in one area. The other thing is the East Side Hotel. In my understanding, it does not have any underground parking now because they had to lower the height. So where are those people going to park? Because it doesn't look like there's enough parking in that lot. and I understand that the add-on parking to our our parking garage we already have is going to be smaller. So it sounds to me like there's either going to be valet parking or street parking for those people. The other thing is, some people, especially in social media, have been talking about how the micro units, and they're so small and so on. My understanding is that these are supposed to be kind of entry-level homes for people that we are trying to get so that they're not having to commute from Manteca or Stockton or whatever every day. So they're not probably spending a lot of time in there anyway, but you know, I thought a lot of people like the tiny houses and the, you know, getting things smaller and less cluttered and so on. The other thing that has really gotten bad, and I think if there was a way around this, it would help what we're all talking, many of us are talking about. People, just in general, I'm not going to say anything about what sides or whatever, have become so rude and so uncivil. And people, I mean, I posted something on Nextdoor, and the lady comes back to me in a couple of hours, and she's basically telling me, well, what I'm really saying is blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, when did you become a mind reader? I said what I wanted to say, and you're turning it around. People are doing that. People are calling each other names. Some of them are not well informed. It's hard for all of us to be well informed, other than you five. But it's just, they're so rude. They're just, you know, and some people are just out and out lying on these things. It's like whether they realize it or not. But I think if people could start doing that, and instead of cutting down what so-and-so over here said, then say something positive about what you're trying to do. Like, catch that. So anyway, I think that would help calm the nerves of people so that maybe we could have some kind of a conversation without name calling. I used up the time anyway, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Brabant. Certainly appreciate the sentiment. John Stein, Neil Herrick, Lynn Seppala.
John Stein, 1334 Cathy Court. I urge you to put the initiative on the ballot. While allowing a public vote is expensive, it would cost orders of magnitude more to adopt the initiative. The initiative is primarily designed to kill the present plan, but does not offer a real alternative. I read the 9212 plan, and I read the initiative, and there basically is no there, to quote Gertrude Stein. No relative. To go through the process of adopting the initiative would mean delays, and often to delay is to destroy. And in this case, the state is waiting in the wings to put high-density, high-rise housing around every railroad station in the state. The signature gatherers promised the initiative would be on the ballot, and the initiative proponents complained the last time the city adopted a referendum. So I think an election is the best way to resolve the issue. I urge you place the initiative on the November 2020 ballot, basically because it's less expensive and people don't have the attention span between Thanksgiving and Christmas to really consider the issue. No government agency has unlimited funds. Taxpayers just won't provide it. So again, I urge you to place the initiative on the ballot for November 3rd, 2020. Again, we are making progress. We are moving ahead. I don't have the oratory skills of the young Mr. Wente, but I do have the words. Shakespeare metaphorically said it best. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyages of life are bound to the shallows and misery. On such a full sea, we are now afloat. We must take the current when it serves, or lose our venture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Neil Herrick, Lynn Seppala, Asa Strout.
Mr. Stein, thank you. That was good. I think the simple choice logically would be the November 3rd, 2020 election. I think a separate election, excuse me, I think a separate election is expensive, unnecessary, counterproductive. I'm not going to take sides on what I think is best. I think the election should be based on those that want the initiative. Give us your best facts, give us your best feelings, give us your best message. Those that support the city should be given the best facts, the best message, the best plan. I think we have spent a lot of effort. I don't know about some of you, but I remember this process. I remember slideshows, fantastic slideshows. I remember being here at midnight. I remember being here at 2 in the morning. I had mentioned to the mayor, my significant other wanted to know what bar I was at. I said I was here. She said, I will call the mayor. I said, you go right ahead, or I'll give him my phone. We had workshops. We've had discussions. We've had plans. I've seen 20 options. I've heard 15 people that hated 9 of them. I've had this discussion. I've had that. I've had the other. We finally come up with a plan. We finally come up with a proposal. And I can hear you. We come up with a proposal, and then we have an initiative that says we didn't go to the workshops. We didn't come to the city council meetings. We weren't here night after night after night. When you had an opportunity to say, the city plan is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life, I hate it. You had that chance. I've talked to people from the Vine Theater all the way down past the car washes. They're confused as hell as to what's going on in this town. They hear the proposal for the initiative. They read the initiative. They hear the proposal from our local paper. They do this. None of it makes sense to the voters. They do not understand. Enough is enough. Everybody take your side. Let's put this on the ballot. And let's stop this infighting, because I got to be honest, there are 5-year-olds on both sides of this issue. Both sides are bad. Both sides. There are 5-year-olds that act more mature than this. My God, people, we've got serious issues. We have got homeless. We have got a dozen things this town needs to address in the next 10 years. Can we just try this as adults? Thank you, and I appreciate it. And again, no disrespect to either side. I think you both have got an argument. Please make it.
Mr. Herrick, thank you. Lynn Seppala, Asa Strout, Don Argula.
Good evening, council, staff, citizens. I'm Lynn Seppala, speaking for myself. This 92 report states that the Downtown Steering Committee, of which I was a member, identified a key learning that the hotel should be front on Livermore Avenue. How well was that key learning followed? Not at all, as the record shows. Not from Presidio, not from the City Council. First, when the Presidio exclusive negotiating rights were in doubt, a Presidio spokesman stated their willingness to site the hotel either on the west or the east, whatever the city chooses. Presidio is willing to forego this key learning based on Presidio's desire to secure the exclusive negotiation right. Second, the council negotiated a Stockman Park that blocked the West Side Hotel on Livermore Avenue before the outreach went to the public. Rather than changing the location of Stockman Park, the council approved plans showing a West Side Hotel on Railroad Avenue. The council basically offered a plan that violated a key learning from this outreach process. This learning has now lost any credibility. Finally, during the outreach meetings, citizens showed a preference for a West Side Hotel on Railroad Avenue. The public did not have a chance to abide by the key learning because the city didn't give that option. This 92-12 report, echoing the Presidio statements from the Outreach Committee deliberations, argues that an East Side hotel is important. Given that the Presidio once backed down from their own line of reasoning, the 92-12 report arguing for an Eastside Hotel is not worth very much. Now, 3 times in council meetings, my comments have been quoted verbatim, saying that the hotel should front on the Livermore Avenue. Context is important. Further on in my remarks that were not quoted, I preferred a West Side Hotel on Livermore Avenue before the site selection of Stockman Park precluded that option. I attended public outreach meetings and voted for the city plans that showed a West Side Hotel on Railroad Avenue. With changing situation, I can adjust my position.
Thank you, Mr. Stepla. Asa Strout, Don Argula, Loretta Caskey.
So I have a little bit of bad news. I'm going to be reading Carl's statement, so it's not going to be as exciting. So Carl wanted to thank Steve Stewart, Paul Spence, your teams, and the rest of the staff that helped you put the 9212 together in such a short time. He wanted to thank you, Mayor, and Council for listening to everything that has been said for the last 4 years during this planning process. He wants to say that my generation wants to move forward. Many, many people have stopped Carl to say, thank you for fighting the good fight. Per the law and the right of that gather signatures for an initiative, it's time to put this on a ballot for the people to vote on and not waste money on a spendful and fiscally irresponsible special election. And that is Carl's statement, so sorry it only took 45 seconds instead of 5 minutes. So I actually wanted to add at the same time that it is fiscally irresponsible to continue to put this on a special election. We are ready for the November ballot. We're going to be doing one. It's imperative that we follow the process to get that onto the November ballot. And when we get to that point, we're going to have a campaign that's going to present both ideas. And at this point, with the findings that we've had in the initiative, I think the people are ready to vote and to continue to move forward with the downtown plan as is. We can't wait 4 years to start from scratch, as referenced in the 9212. That's 4 years too many. My daughter is 2.5 years old. By the time this project is done, she's no longer going to be a child. She's going to be a teenager or possibly even a voting adult. We cannot sit on this anymore. Like grandkids are growing up, grandparents are moving on. It's imperative that we get this done, and we will continue to fight, and we will vote on this, and we are going to make sure this downtown is built. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strout. Don Argula, Loretta Caskey, Jeff Caskey.
Dawn Argula, CEO of the Livermore Valley Chamber of Commerce, representing 500 businesses and organizations throughout the Livermore Valley region. Mayor, council members, and staff, thank you for this report. Again, I just want to reaffirm that the Chamber does not support the city adopting the initiative tonight. The initiative is a major rewrite of the downtown specific plan. A rewrite that was done without benefit of public review or input, which it should absolutely be noted is by law required of a municipality, but not required by a group of individuals that are not vested in the public interest. Do we really believe that is what people were aware of when they signed those petitions? The city's plan is far superior to the Central Park plan. The Central Park plans serves no useful purpose except to obstruct the city's ability, and when I say the city, I mean the city that represents the community, the residents, the voters, the businesses. The city is not an entity unto itself. You all sitting up there are representing many, many people. So when I hear people attack, it's the city's plan, it's your all plan, that's our plan, people. So be careful on your wording there. But basically, it's blocking the city's ability to efficiently and effectively deliver planned improvements that will result in successful commercial elements and a positive a positive return on precious public and private investment in the downtown district. The Chamber does not support adopting the initiative tonight or spending any more precious public dollars beyond what is required by law to put this on the ballot. Prepare this for the general election in November 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Argula. Loretta Caskey, Jeff Caskey, Doug Mann.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Though it appears that the City Council has hardened its collective heart against the Central Park Plan initiative, with over 8,000 signatures collected, it can go to the voters. I'm here to urge the Council to adopt the initiative, but I am now curious about what the city's lawyer has mentioned. So for clarification, if it is 88 to 103 days from order of election, why can't the City Council order the election such that it be able to happen in March 2020? Again, the adoption of the initiative does not preclude the city from working with their selective partners. If timing and delays are a real concern to building a better downtown, then adopt the initiative now and set the schedule to no delays.
Thank you, Ms. Caskey. Do you speak to that, Mr. City Attorney?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Elections Code 9215, as was stated in the staff report, sets forth the timeline for the City Council to take an action once the initiative qualifies. As was presented to you previously, you had a choice at your last meeting to order 9212 report, adopt initiative, or set it for an election. You adopted the 9212 report. Elections Code 9215 then says when you return within 30 days, or within 30 days, you have the final option to either adopt or send to elections. So that decision needs to be made tonight pursuant to Elections Code 9215.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarification. Jeff Caskey, Doug Mann, Liz Roberts.
Mayor and Council, I'm Jeff Caskey, and I was at nearly every one of the city's public meetings. 3 minutes won't be enough to detail all the places where this vendetta document is plainly false, but I will hit a few. The report states that the following steps would be necessary to develop a preferred plan. What are some of those steps? Well, the second item was establish a citizen steering committee to provide feedback. Third one was conduct a public outreach process to determine the land use outcomes based on the initiative's zoning. This is blatantly untrue. First, there never was a legal requirement for either the steering committee or the outreach. Saying it is necessary is just plainly false. Additionally, the steering committee and the public outreach were done before there was a plan. It looked at both east and west side hotels, large parks and small, and a full range of housing sizes and types. Citizen input was not constrained then by zoning. Indeed, citizens were encouraged to be creative. The input then was as valid for the initiative plan as for the city plan. Indeed, the initiative plan is closer to the citizen input. More of the participants wanted a west side hotel. More wanted a broad park from L Street to Livermore Avenue. Many people drew their West Side Hotel closer to Livermore Avenue, but of course that was because the city was hiding from the public that it had already negotiated that land away for Stockman's Park. Imagining what might have happened had the public input, what might have happened in the public input if the city had been honest and told us that the middle of the site was not available for our planning throughout the whole outreach process, because that was never discussed. And believe me, I asked. I was at those meetings. Imagine what the citizens might have been able to do if the council had not hidden the plan for weeks from the steering committee. But the public outreach participants preferred a broad park, minimized housing, and a West Side hotel. All of that is valid today and is the basis for the initiative plan, which is maybe why the city wants to redo the public outreach. The city does go on to list as necessary preparation of an RFP to develop new development partners. But the partner you have was already on board before you decided which side the hotel would go on. So unless the city has information that the developer is backing out, that doesn't make any sense. So the report was clearly written or directed by those who would benefit from attempting to show that the initiative could take, and I quote, an additional 4 years or more. And those people are willing to make or attempt to make it sound like it could take that long, regardless of facts or logic. Indeed, the report looks at how the city could stretch it out, but it fails to even consider reporting on how quickly it could be done. Based on the existing public input, the existing partners, and the work already done, the report doesn't bother to even consider how fast you could adopt the initiative and, and get it done. I assume it would be embarrassing to admit that the initiative could be adopted today. I'm not surprised, but I'm a little disappointed for the thousands of citizens. So please save downtown. Adopt the initiative. Thank you.
Doug Mann, Liz Roberts, Lisa Tromovich.
Mr. Mayor, Council, really, I couldn't put it much better than what Jeff Caskey just did. This report, if you had to come up with a new dictionary entry for defeatism, you might use this report as one of the citations. To even suggest, that's where it really came off the rails for me, is when it suggests that you had to do a new steering committee. That's ridiculous, it's absurd, and you know it. I'm not going to change your mind on what you're going to do tonight. I think it's very sad that we're continuing to go down the road of misstatements and real bias in this way. The timing of the election, I think if the city council wanted and staff wanted to find a way to hold the election sooner, they would. But as the report shows, they don't want this to be convenient. They don't want this to be done faster. They want to make sure that the city's plan goes forward in any possible way, no matter what the facts are. It's very sad, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Liz Roberts, Lisa Tromovich, Denise Ledden.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City staff. My name is Liz Roberts. I am co-owner of Livermore School of Dance on 2nd Street, past president of Livermore Downtown, Inc., and a #1 fan of our wonderful city. I speak tonight as a business owner on 2nd Street, and I have to say, I'm disgusted and frustrated, embarrassed, and simply tired of the actions from the Friends of Livermore. I still don't understand why they are doing this. I just don't understand. They are fighting anything and everything the city is trying to implement and finalize. I find this puzzling, and I question their motives and intentions. I do not adopt the Jones-Sepulveda plan. I feel it is not a plan. It's an unrealistic drawing with no reality supporting it. Please protect our downtown. Lately, the most frustrating thing I've had to deal with is these petition people that we all have seen. They were at Target when I shopped, Safeway when I shopped, and even at my own dance studio. They had approached me and my dance studio families in a very aggressive way where we felt very uncomfortable and violated. Not a fun experience. There's been so much time and money spent on this fight, which I'm sorry to say, it is turning to be a fight, that I feel that the city council can't focus on other important issues and matters that need care in our city. For example, we have the crosswalk issues, lighting issues on our streets. We can't focus directed to all needs with this nonsense going on. I will close in using the quote from our Warriors basketball team, strength in numbers. Approval for moving forward is big in the Livermore community and growing every day. Stay with the approved plan. Mayor, City Council, and staff, thank you again for not giving up and getting this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Lisa Tromovich, Denise Ledden, Marianne Brent, Ralph Moyer.
Hi, thanks for staying awake up there. I'd like to say that I'm here to support the council moving forward by placing the measure on the November 3rd, 2020 regular municipal election and to appoint a subcommittee to prepare primary and rebuttal arguments opposing the initiative. I was just going to say that, but so many people have spoken on behalf of groups or parties that I'm a part of and have said things that aren't true, so I now feel compelled to point out a couple of things. So one person was speaking on behalf of the cultural groups, saying that it won't cost the cultural groups any more money in this initiative plan. That is absolutely false. We entered into an agreement with the city that's a timed agreement, and in order to stay on our timelines, we have indeed spent quite a bit of money. And any movement of the design to a different site, any of the evidently 3 sites that are allowed for in the initiative, would mean we would have to redesign. I've now spent quite a few hours, days, months, working with architects. I know a little bit more about it now, and I can tell you that it will cost us most of that $50,000 that we have spent on design alone, because what we've designed now is for a specific site. For a specific spot, and it won't fit in those other places. So that will cost us $50,000, not nothing. Someone else questioned, a couple of people questioned why a 2,000-seat theater was being brought up. The same people that are supporting the initiative supported the first referendum, and specifically in that referendum, they wanted 200-seat theater changed to 2,000-seat theater. So it's the people who supported the referendum who were bringing that into the conversation again. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in the conversation. It was also stated that a couple of times by we need the parking near the bankhead, but I'm a member of a group called LCAC, and Scott Kennison, who's the executive director of the bankhead, had done a survey, an audience survey, where he reported that something like, I wish I had the exact number, but it was close to 90% of the patrons said they were very happy with the parking. So there is not strong evidence that we need more parking by the bankhead, and I'm a member of that group and attend most of those meetings. It was also stated that the unified concept was brought to you after the outreach process, and that is flatly not true. It was developed during the outreach process, and it was stimulated by the outreach process. We went, different people went to different meetings, we sat at different tables, and the outreach process was successful. It got citizens talking. So we started meeting. We started calling each other up. We started telling each other to call each other up. We started gathering together. And what we talked about was compromise, was we're all going to have to compromise if we're going to present some kind of design that makes sense. The city opened it up to us and said, design something. And so it was compromise, and we did approach the other group, and they didn't want to be involved. And I'll add one last thing. This council did ask us, after the concept was approved to go forward for more development, to meet with the other group, and we did. And it was their way or the highway. It was a horrible, horrible meeting.
Thank you very much.
That's
Thank
where we
you.
are. Thank you.
Denise Ledden, Marianne Brent, Ralph Moyer, Donna Caban.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Denise Ledden. The hotel does not need to front South Livermore Avenue. This is the 21st century. Most people do their research via mobile phones. They don't drive down the main road and see a hotel, then decide to stay. A nicer West Side hotel will be more beneficial to the business community because it is a plus to stay at a beautiful, unique hotel with large, beautiful open green space in downtown. Other cities have squished-in hotels. The wineries continually speak about how a hotel will get them into their magazine, but with this hotel on the West Side, social media and word of mouth will do so much more. So, West Side, a vote on the initiative will suffice as outreach. No need to repeat an outreach process. The report slants this issue. My opinion is the city ignored results of the previous outreach effort. The I Street garage needs to be finished before any plan can proceed. Parking, according to the Central Park Plan, is where parking is needed. The Central Park Plan puts the housing to the side of the green space and not in the Central Park area. This is what most citizens would want. Housing was a last priority according to the outreach. My opinion, it's too bad that the City Council didn't incorporate more of the wishes of the people up front. Livermore can be unique with a Central Park Plan. Please put the initiative on the ballot as soon as possible to prevent delay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ledden. Marianne Brent, Ralph Moyer, Donna Caban.
Good evening. Clearly, I am not Marianne Brent, and I'm not Ralph Moyer. I'm Doris Ryan, but I've known both of these people for many decades, and these are their words. Ralph Moyer and I have been asking ourselves why you have consistently voted 5-0 as a lockstep unit against a plan that so many of us strongly prefer for downtown. Livermore's diverse residents are approaching 100,000 in number. A consistent 5-0 vote is very strange indeed. We have been puzzled and disappointed by your votes, actions, and strategies. As you move forward with your downtown plan, we all recognize your stated rationales are pure fictions. Item. For example, a recent one is that the Protect Central Park Vote Committee secretly still want a large theater on the west side of Livermore Avenue. This is ludicrous when what we prefer in that space is a hotel with amenities. Item. Your personal attacks on the independent newspaper and Joan Seppala are beneath the dignity of your position. Please stop. Item. Ralph and I believe that the Protect Central Park Vote Committee, its affiliates, and its many supporters have taken the long view for downtown development, a view for Livermore's grandchildren, if you wish. Item. Livermore's celebrated wineries deserve an elegant wine country hotel with amenities where there is adequate space for one on the west side of Livermore Avenue. Item. The Bankhead needs parking adjacent to it. Common sense. Item. We need as much parkland as possible because parks nourish the spirit. Item. We want to learn, remember, and honor our history and our vets. Thank you, Stockman, for your contribution of Stockman's Park. City Council, are you listening to us and to your registered voters? Do not delay the initiative vote. Do not spend yet more tax dollars on another outreach. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Donna Caban, Richard Ryan, Sally Dunlop. Donna Caban? Okay. Richard Ryan? Saw him here. Yep, there he is.
Good evening. It comes as no surprise to you, I'm sure, that I support the Central Park plan. Others have spoken already very eloquently in favor of that plan, and so I simply second their remarks. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ryan. Sally Dunlop, William Dunlop, Donna Caban.
I've set you down for a long time. First of all, I want to say that we all have the privilege of our own opinion, and what that opinion might be different from other people's opinion. We should not put them down or make them feel inferior. But one thing I was thinking of a long time ago with the East or the West Side Hotel was one of the reasons why they wanted to put it on the East Side Hotel was because the entrance to Livermore was more beautiful. And I remember that distinctly, coming up underneath the train tracks and into the city. And here we have the transmission place, not only looking at the bricks or possibly looking at a garden with our heads slammed up against the window to be able to see it. And I guess maybe the Culligan Water place is going to be moved or torn down. I don't know. That's part of the I Street garage. But if anyone has ever had their car parked in a valet situation, it's not always a good thing. And that is right up against the railroad tracks. And I don't think that's a very good place to have cars parked. And so I also think that it's not very nice, especially in the independent, to call out, certain people for their opinions. And there was a man here earlier, because people have talked about a wealthy person. And this man was a very wealthy person and will be a wealthy person for the rest of his life. And he had a different opinion. And he rented a bus for his constituents and brought pizza for them. And the only thing I was disappointed is that I didn't get any pizza. But I like this person, and he has an opinion, and he has an opinion like everybody else. And I think that if we take that into consideration, instead of, being mean to each other, we would be doing better.
Thank you, Ms. Dunlop. William Dunlop, Donna Caban.
Good evening. Bill Dunlop, long-term resident of Livermore. Last Tuesday, Protect the Central Park Vote announced that it would be turning in over 8,100 signatures to the city clerk on Wednesday to referend the city's development agreement for an Eastside hotel. We expect that a sufficient number of signatures will be validated by the county registrar of voters to qualify the referendum for the ballot. The committee thanks the residents of Livermore for recognizing the importance of the referendum in protecting the voters' rights. The Central Park Plan initiative has qualified for the ballot. In the meantime, the City Council attempted to undermine a critical provision of the Central Park Plan by entering a development agreement with Presidio. This development agreement would have allowed a hotel to move forward on the east side of Livermore Avenue, which directly conflicts with the west side location of the hotel in the Central Park Plan. The best way to proceed, or to protect the Central Park Plan, will be to stop the city from moving forward with its hotel agreement. The referendum blocks the City Council's backdoor attempt to thwart the right of voters to adopt a better plan for the community. It is clear that the citizens want an opportunity to vote on the best plan for downtown Livermore and are interested in what the Central Park Plan has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunlop. Finally, last call, Donna Caban. Okay, with that, I'm sorry, Ms. Ryan, you've already spoken. Thank you.
But I haven't spoken as Donna Caban yet.
No, but you did speak as Marianne Brent, and you did speak as Ralph Moyer. And people are allowed to speak once. Otherwise, one person could read 30 different letters.
I have seen exceptions made in the past.
No, you have not. I have been very consistent. When Kathy Streeter tried to do that, I called her out, and she was not allowed to speak. So thank you very much.
Her husband was.
Thank you. Well, that's because he's a separate person. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to try it again. I'm going to close the public comment period. All right. Any further comments, questions from the council? Clarifications? Councilmember Werner.
I have one right now. I'd like to ask the city attorney. I noted that it was pointed out that the Central Park initiative actually overlaps with 41% of Stockman's Park. And I would just like to clarify this. Would any attempt to rename portions of Stockman Park, would that be in conflict with the agreement we have with the Stockman?
That would. The agreement with the Livermore Stockman's Rodeo Association states expressly that the park area and the easement that was dedicated to them would retain the name the Stockman's Park.
Just want to make that clear. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. We're talking about all trying to be nice and everything. So why rename part of Stockman's Park? Or try, even think about it.
Further comments, Councilmember Coomber?
I'll be brief, because this is upsetting to me to have to see this every week, every meeting, every, a couple weeks or whatever. It's just, honestly, we have apparently turned into a Japanese science fiction movie from the 60s as the city council rather than 5 distinct individuals. What you can't understand apparently is that these 5 distinct individuals with 5 distinctly different ways of looking at things arrived at the same conclusion. Any scientist in a town full of scientists understands how that works. That isn't a difficult one. And it just drives me nuts to hear about this. As far as not listening to public opinion, if public opinion were the only variable in a planning decision, we would have everything but a redwood forest to a West Side hotel to an East Side hotel to a Taj Mahal downtown. Because when I sat at those tables in the outreach meetings, we heard as many opinions as there were people at each meeting. So unfortunately, for those who consider us not paying attention to public opinion, we have to consider the finances of it. The drawing did not have to consider anything about that. The drawing did not have to take into account the cost of an extra parking structure, which in my eyes means that if an east, somewhere just near the bankhead that was built, one or the other 2 parking structures would not be. We cannot afford that. We can't afford to put in 3 big parking structures. It is completely false to think that we are going to, no matter what passes or doesn't pass, put in 3 parking structures. Because I will guarantee you I will vote against that. We will have 2, one way or the other. Unless you all want to see your property taxes go up. Anybody? Anybody? Because I'm talking to people who are looking right at me who support 3 parking structures. Okay. So just understand that public opinion is just part of the whole mixture. That we have to think of other things while we listen to public opinion. We also have to make our budget work. Our budget is a finite document. It contains revenues and expenditures. It doesn't have an unlimited column. It doesn't have an unlimited down the future column. There are things that are just, if you don't want to consider those, then don't consider coming up with a plan after the fact. Fact is, I could have, had it been that the majority, after discussion before we decided, wanted a plan similar to the Central Park plan, I could easily have supported that. But that's not how it turned out. And we either have to move forward with this or just accept a gravel parking lot down there, quite honestly, in my opinion. I'm just frustrated to that point, and that's where I'll leave it.
Councilmember Monroe?
Well, my temptation is just to say, see August, not August, see what it was, July, whatever the first meeting in July was, see the second meeting in July, see the third meeting in July. Similar comments. There is one more thing I would add, and that is the question of legacy that was brought up during public comment at the beginning, and the idea that everybody wants to leave a legacy of one kind or another, but maybe legacy is what's driving a particular faction. And if that's the case, then I guess I don't understand why not go with the city plan, because the city plan is the one that provides pulling everybody together. It is something that comes together, and it is one that does not take 5 years of delay. Now, if I were looking at a legacy, I guess that's the direction I'd go, and in fact, that is the direction I am going to go. I have gone, obviously, I'm here. I have a question, though. It looks to me like we've got some things to do here. We're supposed to adopt a resolution to accept the report. We're supposed to make a decision. Is this about the time to do that, or should we wait a little while?
Still more comments. Pardon me? Yeah, but we're
Right. You
we're
wanna finish
taking
the
comments right
first?
now. Yeah.
Then I will not. I will stop there because I don't have anything else to say.
All right. Vice Mayor Carling? Well, you had a little brief thing on.
I had a question. I didn't have a comment yet.
Okay. Okay, go for it. All right. Councilmember Warner.
So, yeah, I wanted to get to the point here. First of all, you know, I look at it and we're trying to decide whether to accept the 9212 report, and then we have to get on with deciding what we do with the initiative. So with respect to the 9212 report, I find it to be very informative and accurate. And I would just say with respect to that, that based on the 9212 report, that there's no way that the council can adopt the initiative and move forward in any reasonable manner, as we were able to do with the last referendum from the group. So I think what I get from the 9212 report, the summary is, we're talking years of delay, and I'll speak to that in a moment. And at the end of it, we get higher costs and less parking and less park. So I don't see any, so that's what I see the 9212 says. With respect to the delay, for those who think that this initiative would offer clarity on what to do going forward, I say no way. We have rhetoric for, here, sign this petition, that rhetoric, and the advertisements we get. We get the diagram, and we get the initiative itself. And all three of those things are vastly inconsistent and allow a multitude of options. So for instance, the drawing says, as was pointed out, here's something at 6,000 square feet. The initiative says it can go to 30,000. So if somebody is voting for the initiative, what are they voting for? The rhetoric, the diagram, or the initiative language? And I think we know that what the initiative will be on the ballot is about the initiative. It's not about the rhetoric, and it's not about the diagram. It's what the initiative says, and the initiative allows a vast amount of options, and we would have to sort through them. So there's no question in my mind that we're at a restart, and there is no clarity being offered. And in fact, to me, we are purposely being confused. So that's where I'm at on this thing. I think that the 9212 report, if anything, is, as I said earlier, very optimistic as to what the delay would be. There are significant costs, and so therefore, the only responsible thing for the council to do is to put the initiative on the ballot.
Vice Mayor Carling, comments?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, thanks for everybody that took the time and to come and speak to us this evening. As I've said before, it's always an opportunity for me to learn more about what people are thinking. I too think that the report itself is very well done, and I find it very disturbing that people characterize it as a vendetta or mean-spirited. So I thought Tammy Royce had asked us to be more civil in our comments, I think at one of our meetings at the end of July, and I don't find those comments to be very helpful or to be very civil. We have dedicated staff who have spent their educational careers and their own careers here working on city planning. And the people that have come to speak to us tonight, as far as I know, have never designed a hotel, never designed a parking garage, never designed a city plan, and so on and so forth. So to characterize their report as a vendetta or mean-spirited, I think, just impugns the integrity of our staff, and I think that is that's too bad. Another thing that I find just disingenuous is this notion that we shouldn't or couldn't, or one word was ridiculous, to have another outreach program. Well, I think it's been pointed out that the initiative, the way it's written, suggests either a parking garage or the Science Center or the Black Box Theater sitting next to the banquet. Yet everyone, as near as I could tell, every one of the people supporting the Central Park plan talked only about a garage next to the banquet. So how do you conclude going from the language of the initiative to, okay, we've already decided it's going to be a parking garage there? That is, to me, just completely disingenuous. I've spoken about some of the other things about with regard to the placement of the Science Center away from where people would be and redesigning the theater without even talking to the people that are professionals around this in the past, so I'm not going to belabor that. Parking where it's needed. That I find that, again, that was getting back to parking where it's needed based on the drawing, not what's written in the initiative. And you're voting on the initiative, not the drawing. So keep that in mind. And so that's why any restart would have to go through the process of getting public input and so on. I appreciate Councilmember Coomer's point about the 5-0 votes, and again, I think impugning the integrity of the five of us up here. I think he expressed it exactly right, that we all approach this in a different way. And I certainly, on many occasions, have explained my own point of view and why I made the decisions that I made. You may not agree with them, and again, I think Mrs. Dunlop said we were entitled to a different opinion, so I appreciate her point of view on that. But it doesn't sound like some people allow me to have that point of view, because they continue to question either in front of us tonight or at the end of July, or frequently in letters to the editor in the Independent. Let me turn to one other thing that's of concern to me, and it's particularly in light of what we heard earlier tonight about safety in this community. And I think John, the mayor, and certainly all of us expressed concern about safety for everybody, and we heard that pretty loudly and clearly earlier tonight with regard to East Avenue. But I think, and this is not meant to, again, to suggest that any of the volunteers that have been collecting signatures have exhibited this behavior, because I honestly think that everybody that's volunteered to help collect signatures has been honest, straightforward, and behaved in an honorable way. But that is not true about the people that were paid to collect signatures. And it's one thing to harass and bully, which we heard a lot about that, but to out and out threaten one of our residents, I think goes beyond the pale. And I think from our point of view, from my point of view, as a council member, I think, again, getting back to the safety of our citizens, I think this is utmost importance. So to that end, I sent an email to the two leaders of the Central Park Plan asking them and pointing out that one of our residents had been threatened, and asked them to please share with me what they were going to do to stop the harassment and the threats to our residents now and in the future. Because I suspect that once we do additional DAs, as Mr. Dunlop pointed out, we're going to have more signature gatherers out there. Well, what do you think I've heard from your two leaders? Nothing. So apparently, they're okay. I mean, I can only conclude that they're okay with the process as it stands today, because I haven't heard anything to the contrary. And that's severely disappointing to me. Because I will say that I think one of the chief responsibilities we have as council members elected by the citizens of this community is to protect the community. And certainly we need to do something about East Avenue, as has been pointed out earlier, to reconsider that. And I also hope and expect that we can do something about the change in the signature gatherers. I mean, somebody suggests, well, they can't do anything. Yeah, they can. They could. One thing you could do is throw out all the signatures of the person that threatened one of our citizens. Throw out those signatures. Don't count them. Or how about stop collecting signatures altogether? So there are choices to be made. So I support the 9212 report. I support moving to an election. And we'll find out what the voters have to say in November 2020.
Well, I think you answered your own question. Is this is the process that works for them. And it's been successful the last 3 times. So I don't think you're going to see a change. Thank you for your comments tonight. Certainly appreciate all of them, everybody coming out tonight and over and over and over again. Just a quick show of hands. How many people participated in the outreach process that we went through, the one that was chaired by Drs. Werner and Dr. Carling? Co-chaired. What? Well, the steering committee. There we go. Okay, so a lot of hands. All right. So how many people participated in the development of the downtown drawing? No, the development of the downtown drawing. Nobody raised their hand. For the home audience, nobody raised their hand. No, the downtown drawing, the initiative drawing. So how many people participated in the development of the downtown initiative drawing and the downtown initiative? Nobody. Oh, I see 2 hands. 2 hands that were raised. And yet, this is the plan that the overwhelming majority of the city of Livermore wants. And everybody in this room raised their hand on the development of the downtown plan, the approved downtown plan. We had 2 people. There was absolutely no public process. It was 2 people that interpreted thousands of points of input that this council considered. And this has been distilled by 2 people. We were elected to serve this community. And 2 people developed the plan outside of any public input. So how many people in the room were aware that next to the banquet, and Dr. Carling pointed this out, how many people were aware that instead of a parking structure, the Black Box Theater could go next to the banquet? Okay, you guys read the 9212 report. Yeah, no, but I'm saying, so very few people understand, to Dr. Carling's point, that The parking structure next to the Bankhead Theater can be anything, except a hotel. It specifically cannot be a hotel, even though the key public learning was that the hotel had to go on South Livermore Avenue. Now, a speaker tonight said that he changed his mind to put you had just spoke that he changed his mind because the facts changed. But the fact of the matter is, the key learning didn't change. He changed his mind as far as where the hotel should go, but the key learning was that the hotel should have an iconic presence on South Livermore Avenue. Now, whether it was on the east side or west side, that was up to some debate. The west side originally wanted to take out Blacksmith Square, which was deeply loved. Another thing, all of a sudden, there's a lot of people, a lot of letters to the editor, and a lot of people commented on this tonight, the 2,000-seat regional theater. Why does the mayor keep bringing up this, as they point out, a zombie of a regional theater? Well, everybody seems to have missed the point. The reason that I brought that up is because the 2,000-seat region, and by the way, it was a different mayor. It wasn't this one that was in charge at that time. But the 2,000-seat regional theater and BART in the downtown, the same group of people felt that the city that are promoting the downtown plan believed that the city council had the authority to approve a 2,000-seat regional theater and to approve BART in the downtown. They did not want a vote of the public on that because they felt that the council was appropriately empowered to do those two things. That's why I brought that up. It wasn't, I don't believe that this 2,000-seat theater is coming back, but the fact that it was believed that we had the authority to enact both of those things. And now, all of a sudden, this council should not have the ability to decide whether a hotel goes on the east or west side of the street. I find that very incongruous. People talked about that they really appreciated the fact that the Central Park people were very thorough. And I certainly appreciate Dr. Carling's point about I was also struck by the comment, the vendetta documents. You know what? If there is any financial analysis or traffic analysis or any sort of analysis associated with the downtown drawing, I'd love to see it. But it doesn't exist. And the reason that we did the 9212 report is because none of that data existed. It was drawn up by two people. One of the speakers talked about that we need to save more open space with the Central Park plan. But the downtown approved plan has more open space. We just proved it, and it also has a greater surplus of parking. So if the two goals that we wanted were more open space and more parking, and the approved downtown plan has both. The majority wanted. Yeah, the majority wanted. The key learning was South Livermore Avenue. The outreach has been done. And if all of a sudden anything from a black box theater to a museum or parking can go next to the Bankhead Theater, we've got to go through that whole process again. And by the way, to answer your question, the number was when the Livermore Community Arts Council did the survey on the parking at the Bankhead, 94% of the respondents believed that the parking at the Bankhead Theater was sufficient. 94% it was sufficient parking. We heard from one of the downtown business owners that this will harm the downtown drawing. The initiative will harm the downtown businesses. We don't want to harm the downtown businesses. Somebody talked about with some derision. This was the city-approved plan. That's right. We were the leaders that were elected by this community to develop a plan based on the input. It wasn't a collection of all these different opinions. We took all those opinions together, and we, the elected leaders, created a plan. And who approved the downtown drawing? Who approved the downtown initiative? Was that done in public? No. We just saw it was done by 2 people. This was done by the entire community. 19 stakeholders came together to make this happen. Yeah, right after the election. And the election was all about the downtown. To say that there's no more need for any more outreach if the initiative passes, you got all these different subgroups that really can be anything. So absolutely, there would need to be more outreach. There would be additional delays. And what we heard from the public is they want more traffic, or they want more parking, and they want more parking now. The community, from what we heard, they don't want delays. So we've listened. We're fighting referendums. We're fighting initiatives. We were elected to get things done in this community. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get these things done. But I agree. I think the 9212 report was an excellent document. It was the only document that we had because there was no information about the initiative and the different elements that are contained within it. So we just saw tonight the community developed the downtown approved plan. 2 people developed the drawing. So I think it was the 9212 report gave us a lot of great information. We were told that by the signature gatherers that there was not going to be a need for a special election. And from what we heard from the city attorney, because this is an initiative and not a referendum, we can either spend $800,000 on this, or we can go with the next general election. So I'm done. Thank you for listening. But I will bring it back to the council. What is the pleasure of the council?
Well, I move we adopt the 9212 report.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved to adopt the report, seconded by Councilmember Monroe. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next.
I move we place the initiative on the November 2020 ballot for the
November
regular.
3rd, 2020?
That one.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Monroe, seconded by Vice Mayor Carling. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Okay, so it is going on to the ballot. We obviously need ballot arguments. So when I will, for the subcommittee to prepare the primary and rebuttal arguments, I will appoint myself to the subcommittee. Because, as I said, I'm the only one that has been through the whole 15 years of drama. So who better? You're allowed. Yeah. I mean, I sat out the first 5 times. Dr. Carling, would you be willing to serve on the subcommittee?
Sure, I'd be glad to help.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's the subcommittee. How soon do I need to come up with this?
September 9th.
The staff report requests that you return with a draft for your city council meeting on September 9th. The resolution that was adopted to call for the election for November 2020, since the opening arguments for and against the measure are now due September 10th.
Okay.
So
they're due September 10th, so we'll be back September 9th with a draft for the council's review.
Okay.
All right.
So just to be clear, Mayor Marchand, that the action by the council adopting for the November 2020 election was resolution option B1 in your staff report. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good.
So are we done with 6.01?
The only question left for you is, and you don't need, this is one item you don't need to decide tonight if you don't choose to, unlike all these others that you had to, would be whether you need additional information or would like additional information and what those topic areas. And we heard certainly suggestions of a little more on essentially financing. And
I
dollars.
asked mine earlier on.
You did?
So and those are the ones that I had.
Okay. And so those included essentially several around finance. And were there other areas that in particular?
Now's your chance.
I had asked about with the effect on the small businesses.
Okay. And that one will be much less quantitative on that analysis.
Much less quantitative.
Yeah. So the analysis on that, while we can certainly note what those impacts would be and what their duration might be, quantification of individual impacts on business would be on the scope of your staff to complete that sort of report.
So if I could just make a comment, I would like to have more information, but frankly, I don't actually think we can do much more because we have a drawing that actually isn't realistic, and we have an initiative with too many options. So I don't know where we go from here. I mean, basic things like how do you deliver goods, how do you collect garbage? That drawing is so deficient that unless an actual decent one were provided, I don't know that we can do an analysis. And the other thing, I'll just make another comment. You could refine the timelines as to actually what we would do, because if in fact the initiative people wanted to be specific and make it actually prescriptive, they could have. But in fact, the initiative is just all over the map. So there we're at. I don't think we can do much more at this point with the quality of the information we have so far about what the initiative is.
Okay, so we are done with 601. Very good. Moving on to 7.01, the matters initiated and council reports.
We have had a quiet month with meetings and such like that. I don't have any to report till tomorrow, in fact.
All right. Councilmember Monroe?
Well, let's see. On August was quiet, but I do have a few things. On August 2nd, I attended the report back from the To Us You Matter civic engagement tour. 110 youth delegates and staff traveled around California promoting and exercising civic engagement. And I just think I wanted to note that because I think it's just an example of what youth can do and how important it is to encourage civic engagement. It didn't take place in Livermore, but it's something that I've made some connections with working with our youth on engaging going forward. August 7th, attended the LCAC meeting, and I must say it's always a pleasure to see the range of active arts groups that Livermore hosts. August 8th, something personal happened. I turned 62. You may now sing happy birthday. Or not. As I continue to move into what's being called elderhood, I continue to think, no, seriously, it's a term. There's actually a book. And I continue to think, there is. I'm going to read it. I continue to think about what. What?
And you're looking to your right as you say that.
I was actually looking.
You can't look to your left.
I was thinking about my grandmother, actually, and about the model that she was for me as I continue, as I move into that age, and how she always looked out for the future. She made connections with people from every generation up until the day she died. And she wanted a world, she worked for a better world for that new generation. As I continue to move in that direction, I look to emulate her. August 22nd, moving on, Tri-Valley Affordable Housing Coalition learned about funding for ADUs, both in homelessness and in affordable housing. While I understand we're making not very much progress, or not nearly as much progress as we'd like to make, best we can, not enough. The thing that gives me hope is that I see us moving to a world in which, instead of saying it's every man for himself or every person for themselves, we're saying, let's take care of each other. And I'm seeing that direction go with this move towards how we do affordable housing with ADUs and how we finance it so it's possible in the homelessness, in other areas. It's a really positive sign in a world that doesn't always look positive. Attended the Chamber of Commerce lunch at Concannon and heard Congressman Eric Swalwell talk. And then I wanted to mention that one of the things I've been most enjoying is all through the summer I've been reading at the library on Wednesday mornings. And I have to say, reading to 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, books, children's books about how the world is to be is one of the most rewarding things that I do. This coming week, Assemblywoman Rebecca Bauer-Cahan will be joining me. So if you want to come along and hear some books and talk to your congresswoman, feel free. Also really enjoying the farmers market reach outs. So that's it.
All right, very good. Okay. That's Carly.
Okay, I won't pass. August 6th, I think you missed, we had National Night Out. I know several of us participated in that. Yeah, I thought you missed it, right. And I was there. I know you were there, right. So I went around with one of the police officers, one of the captains, and I think we visited 4 different sites in sort of the south end of town. And I probably talked to a couple of dozen people, and to a person, they were very supportive of the city downtown plan and were just interested in moving forward. So I thought that was interesting. On the 8th of August, the mayor and I were at the Livermore Lab Foundation celebration. There were some student interns that were being recognized, and they had a bit of a celebration for that. I joined the farmers market a couple of different times. I'll get back to that in a second. On the 8th, I had a stop waste meeting on the I am now on the recycling board, which is slightly different than a position I held before, but that was on the 8th. On the 9th, I'll just give a shout out to the folks that collect and put together backpacks for the start of school. And you may know that the faith community within the city puts this together and gets donations and then looks for people to pass out the backpacks. We passed out, not me personally, soon my wife and I passed out backpacks, but a total of 1,100 backpacks were delivered that day to needy students here in the community. This is just another way this city reaches out to people in many, many ways. Just as an FYI, the mayor and I met with the CEO of Juul. Juul is the vaping company, and you know that we've passed an ordinance that they're having some discussion with us about. More about that later. On the 22nd, as Councilmember Monroe mentioned, I participated in the Tri-Valley Affordable Housing Committee. And to her point about the ADUs, those folks are coming up with some alternatives to financing of ADUs, which is kind of interesting because that seems to be a gap there, and they're trying to fill that funding for ADUs. The Wine Country Luncheon I also attended. Let me get back to Farmers Market. It's very rewarding to meet with the citizens, residents that are there. Not all of them live in Livermore, of course, but we had a person ask us about their building permit in Pleasanton, that they were having trouble. Anyway, I tried to give her some advice, but we don't live in Pleasanton. So, but I think in general, again, the feedback that I get at these things is generally the people are very supportive of the downtown plan that the city's put together and ready to move forward. A couple of things that came up that are just outside of downtown. One is a gentleman came up and he was very thankful about the trails in Springtown, and he was a senior and he got to walk those trails. And I said, well, you know, that's really an LARPD endeavor. And he said, yeah, he knew that, but he wanted somebody in the city to know that he really appreciated that. A mom and her daughter came up about East Avenue, but I think we've had enough talking about that today. And then lastly, and this occurred, and I'll be looking to the city manager about this. A couple of individuals came up. This was shortly after the shootings in Gilroy, Dayton, and El Paso. And the question is, of us, what are we doing about that? And so I'm looking to the city manager. Is there a way we could have a conversation about that at one of our council meetings? Because I think there's an element of the community that are concerned about that, and they may not know everything that goes on, essentially, in some respects, behind the scenes in preparing for an event like that. And I think it would help ease some people's concern if they know that at least we're paying attention and we've got some things in place. I know the EOC is obviously something that will be available in the event of such a horrible thing happening here, but is there a way we could have a conversation about that at some future meeting?
Yes. The extremely short answer is that for every larger event in the community, we ultimately do have an operations plan for that. Your public safety folks in particular lead that effort to make sure that where we gather a bunch of folks together for all types of emergencies, from the mundane, somebody has a medical emergency, being able to get in and quickly deal with that, to the much less pleasant sort of events you're talking about. And so we can certainly at a strategic level, and as an example, have conversations about what kinds of things we plan for, all the way from somebody putting something into a trash can that'll go boom, to the kinds of events you're talking about, to essentially a whole variety of outcomes depending on what the event is and where it is, whether it involves lots of people consuming stuff, whether it involves something out at the airport. All of those have very specific plans, and if you can give us a little flexibility on the timing to bring that back, we could certainly agendize that.
So I have one concern, because I was part of that conversation, is, you just talked about the kinds of events we plan for, but you also then indicate which ones we don't. So my concern, which I kind of voiced in that conversation, is you don't want to give somebody a roadmap.
And that would be why we would be talking about things at a much less specific level than you might. But I think that's up to the council as to whether you wish to have that discussion. And at least, I think at the most basic level is, overall, do we plan for everyday operations without large gatherings? Yes. And then essentially when we have things that are gatherings of folks, what kinds of things go into that. And that may be the best way to do is for us to start out with a memo, to have you guys take a look at that and determine whether a more public discussion is appropriate.
Yeah, well, I just really want to iterate this caution. You don't want to give an indication of what we do and don't do, because obviously, somebody might use that against us.
That's a fair point.
But a recent, we had the Little League World Series here, and I know that the leader of that expressed concern to me that here we have this big, large gathering, and, is the city prepared if something terrible would happen there? And I tried to assure him that, yes, we were, but I think it would behoove us just to have a memo. I think would be fine, but I guess I'd like it more public, and I appreciate Councilmember Werner's caution about this, because you don't want to give somebody a roadmap, as he points out. But just to reassure the public in an open way that we have people that are working, that are constantly worried about this and constantly planning, I think it would be an important point to be made. So that would be my preference.
So if it's the council's wish, we can at least do a first step memo back to you
okay.
that talks about the essentially we'll be sensitive to the roadmap issue while still at least talking about our overall operations.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
August is supposed to be a sort of a slack month, but not so much. Again, National Night Out, what a great event that was. A lot of people just love the idea that the mayor comes out and the council members come out and talk with them. On the 9th of August, I met with a contingent of scouts from our sister city, Yotsukaido, in Japan. They were very excited to come out here and spend some time in Livermore. On the 13th, I attended and spoke at the 10th anniversary of the National Ignition Facility. So this is really cool. I actually got to share the stage with Lisa Gordon Haggerty. She's the administrator from the National Nuclear Security Administration, the director of Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and 3 members of Congress. I mean, that's pretty rarefied air there. So it was a tremendous honor for me to represent the city. NIF has successfully, as I mentioned before, when NIF fires, it produces more energy than is being used across the entire United States. It produces 500 trillion watts, or for the left-handed physicists in the bunch, 2 megajoules. That's a tremendous amount of power. On the 15th, a lot of new businesses and schools are coming into town. I was at the Holiday store. They had a ribbon cutting, Holiday store right there on First Street next to Rusty's Chop House. So it's called Holiday, and it specializes in holidays. So right now they've got all sorts of Halloween stuff, and then they got Christmas stuff, and so they rotate through the holidays. So it's a really fun shop. Also attended a ribbon cutting for Livermore Valley Academy. They're over at the Trinity Baptist Church on Olivina. And also the Brat Pack Pet Camp and Cafe. That's down First Street past the old vacuum cleaner shop. I met State Senator Steve Glazer at Very Cool, which for those that haven't heard it is very cool. This guy started this company. He's formerly incarcerated, had a really rough upbringing, but it came up with a really very cool idea to create biodegradable coolers. And his mission is to give people a second chance and to get rid of styrofoam. And he's got these coolers made out of cardboard that don't disintegrate unless you want them to. So it's a really cool thing. Senator Glazer awarded him the Business of the Year, Small Business of the Year. So it's a really, it's just very cool. You just keep saying it. That same evening was the Purple Heart Tour, where we recognize a half dozen recipients of the Purple Heart. A number of the ranch owners host these phenomenal young men that have served this nation, and they host them for this fabulous barbecue. All kinds of people show up, and then they stay at the ranch for a few days just to get some R&R. Wonderful program. Robert Rayo, the rancher around here, is the lead for it. It's a wonderful program. On the 21st, Councilmember Warner and I attended the LAVMA board meeting where we had updates on the operations report. 21st was also the Zone 7 board meeting, which I attended. There was a presentation by CEMEX about their future operations in Lakes A and B. And also on the 22nd was the ribbon cutting for the Acton Academy, and that's over in at Airport and North Canyons Parkway. In the they've got one of the buildings over there in Montevina. Yeah, Montevina. Thank you. So really interesting alternative education program there. So that's what I did there. Just going back to, as far as matters initiated, just circle back to East Avenue safety. That's very important to everyone here. It's an absolute tragedy, what happened, and we need to have a better understanding of exactly what did happen, and once we have that, how we can best prevent it from happening again. So with that, any further comments, questions?
Was that a matters initiated avenue?
Yes, yeah. They all got it. So.
So that actually combined with Councilmember Monroe's earlier those seem to align pretty closely there. And and then the last piece is what we would start with that is bringing back a proposal to look at the corridor more formally as your existing policy in your ATP Act Transportation Plan states. So we could give you an outline of sort of when that could happen and what would be included in that.
Do that.
Very good.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah.
So where is the next meeting going to be?
Your agenda already has an outcome on that.
You know, there is an outside chance that the next meeting may actually be in the new John Shirley Council Chamber and the Emergency Operations Center. So look around. That's where the raccoon almost came through. Yeah, that's right. So this may be the last meeting here. Thank goodness the air conditioning continued to work tonight. It's been kind of sketchy. So stay tuned. It's an outside chance, but stay tuned. There's a lot of technology in that building. We got to make sure it all works. So pay attention. With that, thank you very much. Good night. Meeting adjourned. Oh, certainly.